Good evening, welcome to Poker Night Live. I'm Lyndsay, joined tonight by Caspar.
Second of 5.
Hello.
5 in a row.
5 in a row. I know you're going to be tired.
I am going to be knackered.
Busy boy, busy boy. I've not seen you for ages.
I know, I've been here for a long time.
I know.
It was like walking into, you know, when you go back to your old school. That's what it was like yesterday.
And now all the viewers can't get rid of you for 5 days.
I know, whether like
it's going to be Caspar overload. Well, we're here with you till 2 o'clock on Poker Night Live, the show that brings you live internet Texas Hold'em 7 nights a week. And as always, it's your show. What do you want to talk about? It's up to you. We want you to get in touch with us. We want you to send your questions through. Test Caspar's brain tonight. He'll answer your questions. It's amateur night tonight, so you can ask anything at all.
So, well, keep it light. That's what we like.
Yes, light and fun. There's the text number 84222. Make sure you put the word poker at the start of your message, or you can email. And there's the address. It's poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. And if you want to find any more information about the show, you can look at our website, www.pokernightlive.co.uk. So we've got lots of cash games for you, sit and goes, and we've got an MTT as well, a $10 MTT. So we'll be dipping in and out of that throughout the night. Would you like to take us around our selection of tables?
Oh, go on. Yeah. $2 sit and go we have on table 1. Quite far into it there. Blinds at 81.60, and a whole new load of players as well, which is good.
It is
good to see a new load of players.
We like new players.
Yes, definitely. Love our contributions to the forums, but it's important to have new players all the time. As a $10 sit and go there. Again.
Oh, great movie, Cheech and Chong.
I haven't seen any of those films.
Have you not?
No. Enigma, I know him. It's nice, isn't it? It's like going back to your old school and recognising someone.
Yes.
It's 25-cent, 50-cent cash game with Mr. Kenneth Hawkins in seat number 3. Fishing for chips. And there's a lot more regulars. And we do seem to get that, don't we? More regulars in the cash games than in the than in the sit and goes, which tends to be an arena for exploring. And lots of good new players there in the multi-table. Fantastic.
We've got 121 entrants into the MCT tonight, so we'll be looking at a lot of the play and also show the final table later on as well.
Eat my ace. Yeah,
so we want lots of emails tonight, don't we? We want lots of response from you, lots of questions, or if you've just got a story to tell us or a comment, get them through to us. 84222. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at the fact that I said eat my ace, and you just went, yeah.
I expect it from you, that's why I expect it. Or you can email poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Right then, we're going to head over to the MTT and have a look at one of the tables. So we started off with 121, but we're down to 83 now.
Okay.
1,500 starting chips, started with 16 tables. There's no rebuys or anything, it is a freeze out, and the blinds are going up every 12 minutes.
Okay. So, sorry, how did we start with? Started with 121, now we've got 83.
83,
okay,
yeah.
So we should be playing, in my view, depending on your table, the default setting for me right now is pretty solid poker.
Yeah.
Because you get a reasonable amount of time in this sit and go. So, whereas in the early stages we're going to have massive stacks compared to the blinds, and if you've got that, like if you're 7-8 on tilt and you've got a couple of other hands, there's Baskerville there with 6,000. So if you had a few other hands around your table with 100 times the big blind, then you might want to take some more deep stack risks. Certainly.
Deep stack risks.
Deep stack risks, Linz.
Never heard that one before.
Well, what that means is if you a number of players all playing deep stack, and if they're the kind of players that will pay you off on the river, then you can afford to play more loose.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get the value of those implied odds. But as soon as your stack starts shortening compared to the big blinds, then you just need to start playing more solid.
Right. So those blinds aren't really damaging anyone on this table at the moment?
Well, no, I don't think they're damaging anyone. I mean, Magic Rat's only got 20 of them. Circa's got about 60 there. So no, they're not damaging anyone at all. Poor old 7-8 there. Right? 6 times the big blind there in a sort of an attempt to disguise his aces, make it look like anything but aces. But didn't work. Scared him enough.
So he's got 10 king. A lot of chips, but he's just called it. Just wants a cheap look with his king 10.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, once upon a time we'd have said, oh, you know, don't want to be calling with king 10 in early position, but as we said, you know, these games have changed so much. If you are deep stacked and you're playing against a couple of other players that you have no other edge on, you might want to try and outplay them on the flop by playing with those king tens in early position. I certainly wouldn't be making that call in early position if I only had 20 times the big blind left.
Yeah.
But that's what we're saying. I mean, all right, when you think about deep stack, you think about playing the hands that benefit from implied odds, like your suited connectors. But king 10 probably becomes one of the hands that you can afford to take a little punt on.
Yeah.
Because you've got so many times that big blind left in your stack. How's your poker playing coming along, Lyndsay? I haven't seen you for weeks and weeks and weeks.
It's all right, actually. I've had a good run on the Beat the Presenter games.
Good, excellent.
I won 2 in a row.
Excellent.
And then I was on the bubble last time.
Right.
But according to TK, I didn't do anything wrong. I was very unlucky when I went out. But I've been doing all right, getting a lot better.
That's brilliant.
I think I shocked a few of the guys on there. A lot of them thought they could push me off hands.
What happened?
I wasn't going anywhere.
Aces for Baskerville. Queen Jack raises it to 2 times the big blind in early position. A number of good hands here. We've got 4 good playable hands and an absolute dream situation for Baskerville. And now the question is, how is he going to extract the most money? Is he going to re-raise it? Is he just going to smooth call and get a couple of callers to see in the flop? He wants to close it down. That's very interesting. I'm not sure that I'd be doing that with aces unless you can... Oh, I guess maybe he's saying, look, if I push all in now, I will only at least get maximum of 2 callers and possibly just 1.
Marshy's
and Marshy does just call, yeah. So he gets 1 player pot committed. So, OK, that's certainly a method in there.
That's an awful situation for Marshy to be in, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a depressing situation when that happens.
So we've got 77 players left. 10 places are paid in this tournament. First prize, $363.
See, what I would say in Baskerville's situation there is you've got aces. Now, let's say Marshy's going to call, right? So for me, I'd be re-raising because Marshy's going to call and then they're all in, so they can't do anything. Otherwise, if they outdraw you from that point, well, that's just what happens. So I'd actually make a raise, just a slightly bigger raise to try and draw Old Fox into the pot, or maybe one other player. Because then I'm playing heads up with 1 player all in. That closing it down there at that situation, I think, was just a little bit too cautious for me for
so
what
would you make it about?
Strategy.
600, 800?
No, because actually the player to Baskerville's right has made it 400.
Marshy,
so I'd make it about I'd make it about 1,000, maybe 1,100. And that might be a bet. If it was 1,000, that might be a bet that Old Fox would have gone on to call, because that would only have been 800 more. And obviously, if you're in Baskerville's shoe, you don't know what Old Fox has. Old Fox doubled it from first position, which tends to mean something like either Jack 10 or Queen Jack, or a loaded hand like aces or kings. Maybe sometimes queens, although I think that's a big mistake to do it with queens. So if you're in Baskerville's shoes there, for me, I want them to call. I want them to be in a situation where they're going to call.
So what we're saying is, he made a move that was going to win him the pot, but he didn't extract as many chips as he could have. In my opinion,
But let me just stress, this is one of those situations where this is not where I stamp my foot and go categorically, that's the situation. For me, it's just a judgment call there. And of course, Lyns, it's always easy from up here, isn't it?
It is.
In the blimp.
It's always easy in the blimp, looking down, passing judgment.
I can't remember whether it was me or Matt that invented the blimp analogy. I always used to say, here we are up here looking down. I think Matt may have added the word blimp.
The blimp.
I don't think we invented blimps, kind of make that clear. I'm not claiming the patent. Just claiming the analogy, the application to this situation. Shall I shut up?
Yeah.
That was quite rude for you. You're normally really sweet.
Yeah, but you knew I didn't mean it.
I said, eat your ace. No, eat my ace. And you went, yeah. You didn't say, why are you saying eat my ace?
Because
Caspar?
I expect randomness.
Did you see there was a player called Eat My Ace, though?
Yes.
Did you? Are you sure?
Yes.
You promise?
Promise.
Because to me, it just went, eat my ace, and you went, yeah. As if it was the most common thing in the world.
Yeah. Nuff said.
Yep, fair comment.
It's a chav name.
Marshall, you're in a very stirred mood tonight, aren't you?
Am I?
Chav name, telling me to shut up. Well, agreeing with me that I should, at least. Okay, so Baskerville with a slightly bigger pair. What can you say about a hand like this? Not an enormous amount. It's just playing its way out, wending its way towards its inevitable conclusion. There it is, a conclusion.
That's it, yes. Great commentary.
Thank you.
So we move to another table. Pigeon head.
Now, what can we say about this table immediately, Liz? Immediately, look at the table.
We can say that it's very, very even. We can say that Idolize is in pretty bad shape compared to everyone else, but the rest of the players are on a pretty even keel.
They're on a pretty even keel, but it's a pretty low keel.
Yes.
Yeah? Can you have that? Can you have a low keel?
Yeah.
Well, if you can, they have got one. Look, Idolize just made 4 aces.
Nice.
But he's not going to get paid by Silston. He doesn't know that, of course. He's sitting there thinking, first of all, I'm going to do nothing for a bit, and then the next thing is, has he missed his flush draw? Can I induce a bluff?
Yeah.
Whatever happens, I'm going to win the hand. The question is, will I get a call? Will I be able to get this 497 in the pot? And unfortunately, as it was there, he bet out and didn't get it in the pot. But no, the thing I was going to say was that all these stacks are lower.
Yeah.
There's less money on this table than the previous table. And therefore, one of the effects of it is that there is far fewer implied odds. And therefore, these players should be playing tighter and more solid.
Right.
Yeah, unless you have one player who sees that sort of tightness and an opening up of the gap and chooses to capitalise on that
and loosen their game up.
and well, loosen in an aggressive manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the aggression is the key there. But you've got to sense that that tightness has taken hold of the table.
I got 4 kings and beat the presenter.
Did you?
Yes. My best ever poker hand. 4 kings, and I had it against a guy with trip aces.
Really?
I got loads of chips off him. So good.
Yes, you girls done very well and beat the presenter, haven't you?
Not bad.
Put the guys to shame,
yeah,
I think.
Not bad.
Not me, obviously, but some of the others.
Yeah. Some of the others. Yeah, I've got money in my account, unlike some of them.
Have they been using my account? I haven't
They've
seen
probably
my
been
account.
using it, actually,
I've probably gone down from $350.
Yeah. It's the problem that the passwords have been made available to everyone.
It's disgusting. Ladies versus Ace King. Who's your money on, Lyndsay? Let's have a race.
The ladies.
Okay, I'll take Ace King. Idolize raises it up. Will Stacky re-raise or just smooth call and see what the flop brings? I made a re-raise in Prague the other day with Ace King and got called by a pair of queens. And the queen never came on the flop. And it was a silly move. I should have just smooth called, but I was playing an incredibly effective, aggressive style. And I'd been very effective until that point. At that point, I just had to concede that I wasn't being...
So then, if that happens, do you then change your style, or do you carry on with...
Well, on that occasion, I had to get up.
Oh, yeah, you were out.
Yeah. But
get your coat.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. So if that had happened, yes, that's absolutely what I would have done, actually, is because of my principle of people would perceive you as being a loser at that point. It would be a very public hand.
Yeah.
You know, the 2 hands turned over. Let's say I had him out stacked, for example. Now listen, on this occasion, look what he's done. There, he's pushed over the top. So Idolize exactly the same thing, raising this time with the ace-jack, not the ace-queen. And this time, Stachy raising right over the top.
Ooh,
and
he's
unless
got
a diamond
short,
comes, Stachy wins. So that's interesting, isn't it? 2 ways of playing the ace-king there. Of course, the queens wouldn't have folded. So actually, Stachy playing that to perfection, which, considering he can't see the other hand and we can,
Yes.
is... good show. Not this show, obviously, but his show.
Yes,
within
his
our
show. The Stachy show.
It's not really for me to say this is a good show, is it? That's out of order in a way.
That would be presumptuous.
That's like us awarding ourselves the best poker show at the UK Gambling Awards just by getting everyone to vote.
It worked, though.
Yeah.
It was effective.
It was very effective, no doubt about that. Pigeon head. Eat my ace.
There was a boy at my school called Pigeon.
Really?
Because he used to walk with his chest out, so he wasn't Pigeon.
Yeah, he wasn't called Pigeon, was he? You started this by saying there's a boy at my school called Pigeon.
No, I think it was called something like Stephen or something.
Right. There's a boy at my school who we called Pigeon, that's what
Who we called Pigeon, yeah.
In fact, whom we called Pigeon.
Yes.
It's easy to get these things right as it is to get them wrong.
Absolutely.
And there's a confident raise there from John Boy. Now, what is the pigeon going to make of that? He's having none of it, he says. Pushes over the top. He needs a heart, an ace, or a queen. He gets the queen.
Yes.
And John Boy will be sick as a pigeon. He's a rebel. I wonder whether he'll rebel against that, or whether he'll just be blinded away.
Yes, so now Idolise has the ace queen.
Oh, that's...
Is that a bit tilty?
a tilty pigeon sick there.
Yes.
Yeah. Now Idolise, interestingly, does have a choice, does have a decision to put his entire tournament on the line with ace queen. But it is the correct play because of those different contributing factors. Number one, you know, you're only heads up. Number two...
He's just seen him lose.
We've just seen him lose, yeah. And Nick and I went on a big rant about this last night, so we won't repeat it word for word here. But of course, if you're Idolise, you can't know what John Boy Rebel has. You can't know that you're beating him. But you can assess the balance of probabilities
from the situation
by inputting that data into your onboard calculator.
Excellent.
Yeah, and
like
the calculations come out with, you know, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be beating him in this situation. In fact, I would say a lot more than 9 times out of 10. No, I wouldn't. But I would say 9 times out of 10.
Right.
If it was just a straight heads-up match between ace-queen and A2 random hands, then actually ace-queen is going to win more than 9 times out of 10.
So you don't know where you are, but you have to be making a calculated judgment.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, when I say I didn't mean any 2 random hands, I mean any 2 random cards.
Yeah.
It's going to be winning heads-up against any 2 random cards a very great deal of the time. But what we know is that John Boy Rebel's gone all in. Now, normally, what read do we have on players, Lyndsay, in online poker? What's our best read?
Is the way they bet.
Just the size of their bet, yeah, and then we can conform that to the betting pattern, but just the size of the bet on this occasion, it's an all-in bet, and therefore it's a very powerful play from that point of view, as we see a 4 to a straight flush there, 2, 3, 4, 5 of diamonds, getting beaten in the end by, did he have one ace-4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We don't know, because look, it's just frozen in time there.
Ace-4.
We've chosen a frame that just masks his hand. We're doing our best.
We are.
It's Wapping's fault. Blame Wapping.
Blame Wapping.
Yeah. But the bet was big, so we say, okay, he's got a good hand because he's bet big, and he did have an okay hand. You know, I think he had like King 8 suited, didn't he?
King 9, yeah.
King 9 suited.
He did, yes. King 9 of clubs.
King 9 of clubs, yeah. And so, you know, it wasn't like he was pushing in with Jack 4. But then we had to say to ourselves, okay, now we're going to be staking our tournament on this.
Yeah.
But one of the things we're saying when we say that we're going to be staking our tournament on it is that we're already quite low stacked, so the opportunity cost of not calling is actually quite high in the sense that we don't stand a very good chance of winning anyway.
Right.
And that's one of the things that increases our pot committedness, I think, in that situation.
Okay. Which means you have to continue.
Yeah, because we've got a good situation there of doubling through and doubling our chances of making a money place.
Yeah.
You know, if you were in a big stack situation and someone went all in and you had ace-queen and they had you covered, you'd fold it.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity cost of not playing is far less because you've had such a good chance of making the money anyway. But that's where the size of your stack, I think, plays a part in the choice that you make.
So the hand before was more important than that hand, really, didn't it? It sort of dictated the way that hand was going to go.
Yes, yes.
For both of them.
In many ways, yes.
Lots to think about there already. If you've got any questions that you'd like to put to Caspar, then please do get in touch with us.
Caspar?
Caspar. Did I say Caspar?
Yeah.
Caspar.
You had a drink?
No, I haven't actually.
I didn't have a
very
drink last
Sean
night
Connery. I had lots to drink last night, I have to say.
Yeah, but you weren't on the show.
No. You did have a drink last night.
No, of course not. That would be unprofessional.
There's the text number for you. It's 8422 if you have any questions for Caspar. Or you can email poker@pokernightlive.co.uk.
Anything.
Anything for you, Caspar.
Thank you. Swinger there. moving on in. Sorry, I just caught the end of that. Well, poor old Goldenful was Chris calling with the two pair, beaten by the bigger two pair, I think, from the very short snatch that I saw, but we can only guess.
We can.
Let's watch more closely from now on.
We should. Let's watch Buck Burpee. I don't think he's going to get...
Who?
Buck Burpee.
Oh, Buck Burpee, right.
He's not going to get any takers.
Little Acorn. Do you remember the BBC Acorns? The computers?
Yes.
They were rubbish, weren't they?
They were rubbish. My first computer was a Commodore 64.
And mine. Actually, that's not true. My dad bought me an Oric.
Oh, right.
And the Hobbit computer game wouldn't load on the Oric, so we took it back. And
You got a
the
Commodore.
Hobbit won't load. Yes, we want a Commodore 64. Got a Commodore 64. I thought you were too young for that, Lyndsay.
I think it was bought for my older brother.
Really?
And we shared it.
What was the first game you can remember playing?
I used to play Lemmings. Oh no! And then they just fall off the rock and explode. I can mainly remember playing on the Sega, actually. Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah. And I used to like playing the tennis on the Commodore 64.
Do you remember Pong, or were you too young for Pong?
I don't remember
Is it Pong? Where you were beep?
Yes, I do.
Binatone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The tennis,
Yeah.
where you just had to move the... Yes.
And now look, of course, live poker played by people from all across the planet.
It's magic, isn't it, the way things change?
It really is. If I can quote Kevin Keegan during the opening ceremony of Euro '96.
Yes.
They were talking about footballers' salaries. Oh no, that's right. They were talking about compared to 1966. They were saying, "Isn't this amazing, Kevin? 30 years on, and here we are watching the opening ceremony of another international tournament live on British soil." And Kevin Keegan went. It's one of those moments where you knew he was going to come out with the Colin balls. He went, "Oh yes, but the whole world's different now, isn't it? You've got computers and all sorts."
All sorts. That's quite a good impression, actually.
Thank you.
It's like when Kevin Keegan says things like, well, if we don't lose, we'll get some points.
So, pair of jacks, raising it up to... Oh, sorry, it's been re-raised. So, Buck Burpee raises to ace-queen, a good raise, and Swinger makes a really good confident bet, in my opinion, raising it to twice the previous bet. I'm going to get this right in a minute. And Buck Burpee's got a decision to make now, and he makes it, and it comes down with a queen, and poor old Swinger knows that he's got to fold this now. He is getting big odds there. He's getting 4-1, but it doesn't have a jack.
2 overcards there, scaring him.
At the end of the day, he needs a lot more than 4-1 if he knows that Buck Burpee's got a queen. Buck Burpee's got a queen. Obviously, he doesn't know that Buck Burpee's got a queen. But
he can be pretty sure he's been beaten there either by the queen or the king, can't he?
Yeah. It's a desperate situation. And how does he know that? Because he inputs this various different pieces of information to the computer, and it's worth just taking a moment to see what piece of information they are. Number one, someone has raised from first position to your right.
Yeah.
Not just raised from any position, they've raised from first position to your right. So the basket of hands that we can put them on are aces, kings, ace-king, ace-queen, possibly ace-jack, maybe even ace-10, could be king-queen, maybe a pair of jacks, maybe a pair of tens. So basket, was that, about 12 hands, yeah? That's 12 hands out of the possible 121 or whatever, not taking suits into account it is. Right, so you're then sitting there with a pair of jacks, and the flop comes queen, king, rag. And the guy bets out, and you get 4-1. So there are 2 jacks in the pack, right? And that's a pack of 45 odd cards.
Yeah.
So it's 20-1, but you got that twice. So you're actually 10-1 to hit a jack.
Yes.
All right. But you're only getting 4-1. So that's not enough on that situation. But you don't know that he's got a queen. But what you say is, all right, I don't know that he's got a queen. He could have a pair of sixes. He could have ace-4 down there in the hole. But
the fact he made that move in first position.
That's right. That's what you have to put into the computer that weights all these probabilities. So in your mind, what you can literally sit out and work it with a calculator, but you'd have to put what sort of a probability or what sort of a weighting would I have to give his pre-flop bet in terms of putting on a basket of hands on the flop, coupled with his betting out on the flop, which he might do anyway.
Yeah.
He would do with ace-6, because he's basically saying the only chance I have of winning this hand is to now bet out with my $775. So that's not really the strength there. It's the pre-flop bet that says I'm going to put all this together. I'm not getting the correct odds. In other words, this is a loss-making play, and it doesn't matter how desperate you are. It doesn't matter, you know. The only thing that could possibly re-weight that to calling that is if you're in a situation where you were a big chip leader at the final table, and the money you'd make from possibly knocking someone out 1 in 10 times or 1 in 7 times from calling it would override those odds. But essentially in that situation, it's a loss-making bet, and therefore it's a gamble, and you shouldn't be gambling.
And it's still fairly early on in the tournament.
There's nothing about the stage in the tournament that should make you do it. But that's the difference between the gamble and the calculated risk. You're not getting the odds, even especially after having put all that information into your onboard computer. Commodore 64, if you will.
Commodore 64, that'll do, yep. I've got an email for you from Frontloader, who says, "Hi Lyndsay and Caspar, great show last night, Cas."
Oh, thank you very much indeed.
Lots of people saying that, actually, Caspar. "Can you explain when you feel it's right to be attempting to play suited connectors? They seem to lead me into trouble. I'd appreciate your thoughts. I'm tempted not to play them at all." And he says, "Keep up the good work, many thanks."
Okay. Suited connectors are, in essence, a drawing hand. This is really, really important, and I'm going to say some things now. People are going to fall into 3 categories. People who are new to poker, because this is an amateur night, for whom this will be completely new, so that's fine. People who know this, but don't apply it, and people who know it and do apply it. If you're in that middle category, I want you to stop and think about what I'm going to say here, because it's very, very possible, and I know this because I did it for a long time, to know this consciously, but to still play suited connectors in situations in which you shouldn't play them because you sort of feel that you're a good enough player to outplay people on the flop. The fact of the matter is that suited connectors are a hand that need implied odds. That essentially makes them a drawing hand. That doesn't necessarily make them a drawing hand, but essentially it makes them a drawing hand. What is going to give you implied odds? Number 1 is lots of players. That's the multi-way element of the hand.
Yeah.
Number 2 is a bad player who'll pay you off.
Right.
Who will pay you off on the river when you hit your hand. If you don't have one of those 2 situations, then you shouldn't be playing 7-8 suited. You shouldn't be playing 7-8 suited against 1 or 2 good players who are going to be playing better cards. In other words, they're going to have better cards than you on the flop.
And even if you hit, they won't.
And when you hit, they won't pay you off. Yeah, absolutely. That's when you shouldn't be playing 7-8 suited. Of course you could make your flush. Of course you can make your straight flush. Of course you can make your straight. But you're not going to make it often enough to pay unless you get the situation of implied odds, which Ken Snappett Hawkins, to his eternal credit, said that we should talk a lot about last night. We'll talk a bit about it tonight, Ken, but to get really deep into it, I think I'm on with James tomorrow.
Right.
So I'm going to save a deep, in-depth conversation about implied odds for a pro night, but we're touching on it tonight. Implied odds, folks, really importantly, if it costs you $1 to enter a pot and the pot is $5 now, your pot odds are 5 to 1, $5, $1, 5 to 1. Implied odds are, by the end of this hand, what can I turn that into? In other words, what am I going to get paid by the end of this hand? What is it implied? No, what is the implication? What this situation implies that I can make a certain amount by the end of the hand. That's implied odds. So if it's going to cost you $1 to call a pot of $5 now, but there are so many players in the pot, or the players are so bad, and you definitely need the situation in which players all have deep stacks, and you have deep stacks, hence the deep stack thing before, then you can play hands like 7-8 suited. And I mean, all due respect to Mark, I've always say to Mark, I say this to his face, I don't like us talking, even in jest, about playing 7-8, because I think it leads to that middle ground where people go, I'll just play it and I'll try and make it profitable, because other people make it profitable. And unless those conditions are fulfilled, it's never going to be profitable. And every time you hit it, and you make money with it, it's misleading. And over the course of a lifetime, it'll cause you to lose a lot of money in the long run. And that's the problem with it.
So it's never going to be a yes, no, you should play it, you shouldn't play it. It depends on that situation and whether you have those factors in place.
You need those conditions, yeah. And if you don't have those conditions, you can be the devilfish. I mean, what the devilfish has is significantly worse players than him playing, and a situation in which he's engineered the reality in which people will pay him off by the river by having played so loosely and creating a loose style and everything and all the publicity he does.
And roaming hands.
I haven't had that experience. I haven't had the pleasure. Was it a pleasure?
No.
No, it wasn't.
A chore.
I still haven't seen it, actually. No. So that's why, and so what I'd say front loader is it's not a question of playing them or not playing, it's not a question of giving them up, definitely, because if those conditions are fulfilled, they will add to your profit. However, one of the things that we might explore tonight is what sort of very small basket of hands you could play as an exceptionally tight player and guarantee making yourself a profit. So Ken, if you're out there, when you first started playing, you played exceptionally tight. What sort of hands could we construct? Like literally 5, 7, 8 hands where you can play, minimise the pain in your game and definitely make a profit even though the blinds will eat you up from time to time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
Okay.
We'll look at that. And if you want to hear a more in-depth discussion about implied odds tomorrow night from 10 when you're on with James and you can go into it in much more depth.
Yeah.
And debate it with someone who understands it properly too.
It's not that, Linz. It's
is.
the whole amateur-pro night distinction thing,
yes,
isn't it?
No, but that's a good idea.
We get smacked on the knuckles.
People know they can tune in tomorrow from 10 and hear that discussion. If you've got any questions for Caspar, then you can send them in to us. Text us, 84222. Put the word poker at the start of your message, 84222. Or you can email, and there it is, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. So we're going to head to a cash game now.
Wow.
Something a little bit different. It's a 25-cent, a 50-cent cash game.
Where's the 5 cent, 10 cent game, eh? The 1 cent, 2 cent game. That's what we want to see. We want to see bad play.
Yeah.
We want to be able to...
We can learn from that,
Absolutely.
yes.
Not laugh at it. Although, no.
We don't want to be
laugh.
watching the grinders who are doing everything right.
That's right. That's right. Email last night said that very thing. Very true. Look at these 3 hands. Pair of 10s, pair of queens, ace, king suited. Ooh, internet poker's rigged. It isn't. Now, with the ace-king suited, will we be smooth calling this or re-raising it? For me, smooth calling. For I'm not a minger, moving all in. For me, it's just smooth calling that, particularly because of the suited nature of it.
Yeah.
And in fact, interestingly, well, no, I wouldn't be following that, even if the raises came from early position from tight players. And if it wasn't suited, I'm saying. If it's suited, I'm going to be calling it, basically.
Trick queens?
Yeah. And 10 will still save him, and we have quads. So, the second quads of the night. We had quads last night as well. Quad-tastic.
Aces and queens
Perhaps
tonight.
internet poker is rigged. It isn't.
You keep saying that.
I'm just...
Something bothering you?
No, we just get a lot of emails asking that one question, don't we? So, the hutch. The hutch. Do you think that's Starsky or rabbit?
Probably rabbits.
Do you think?
Yeah. Or guinea pig, indeed.
What else could it be? What other meanings of the word hutch are there?
I don't know.
No. Okay. Conversation cul-de-sac, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
10 jack, not suited. Call in early position. And this guy's only got 26 times that big blind to play 10 jack in early position. In other words, he's in a situation now, I'm not a minger, where people behind him could raise him, right? And he'd either lose 50 cents, which is one, you know, he's only got 26 of them in his stack.
Yeah.
Or he's going to put, what, a fifth, a sixth of his stack in on 10 jack suited in early position? That's why you don't play 10 jack suited in early position unless you're deep stacked. That's what the deep stack principle is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely very important. It's certainly a word that I'm using increasingly. Can you tell?
I can, yeah,
Can you?
I can.
It's a giveaway, isn't it, the fact that I'm using it increasingly?
But it's good, because that hammers it home.
Yes, Ken now. Interesting bet there from Ken. Only 4 times the big blind, but with a caller just to his right. And such is Ken's reputation, or such as the cards on that particular occasion, so it's important not to read too much into the anecdotal example, that everyone folds to him. But actually, I would be raising a little more than 4 times with my pair of kings if I've already got a caller. I'll be pushing that to 5 or 6 times at least, actually.
Yeah. I'd love to see Ken come on one night and just play like a complete nutter, because his reputation is so solid.
Well, you know, it's very interesting though with Ken, because, I mean, let's talk about image for a bit, because we talked about it last night. I talked about image with reference to 2 players in particular, Dave the Devilfish and Phil Hellmuth.
Yeah.
Right? And these are 2 players who are doing everything and do everything in every part of their lives to create a very specific image, and in their case is the opposite image.
Yeah.
Right? So Dave comes on and says, just like to play poker, you know, right? Just wants people to believe that he plays every hand.
Yes.
Right? And Phil Hellmuth is writing and talking and, you know, acting like someone who is playing very, very tight.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, here's the interesting thing that I thought about Phil Hellmuth when I read Aces and Kings, which is the good book that Nick bought me recently about the different players, is that he goes mental and berates people for calling him in tournaments.
Yeah.
And it's quite embarrassing. And
he does it at the table.
Yeah. He's, you know, he's poker brat.
Right.
You know, and revels in that sort of aura. Now, 2 things about Phil Hellmuth. The first thing is, he stands a very good chance of being poker's first billionaire, right? Because of his off-table interests. Right. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 2 years, but he's got so many fingers in so many pies when it comes to sponsorship and just business ideas that actually the poker is reasonably irrelevant to him now.
Yeah.
He will always be the youngest winner of the World Series. He will always be a winner of 9 bracelets. You know, I think that the same human drive that got him those 9 bracelets means that he'd like to win some more.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's not imperative to his life anymore. And that
he's got the image now, and people, that will never change.
Yeah.
No matter what he does in poker now, it doesn't matter.
That's right. But that tiny little absence of edge, that's really important.
Yeah.
Because that's the difference between being a champion and being good. Right? So that's the first thing to say about it. But the second thing is that what occurred to me is that when he berates people and shouts at them, what he's really trying to do is create a lot of pain with the concept of calling Phil Hellmuth. Yeah. Because Phil Hellmuth never wants to be called. Yeah. Phil Hellmuth wants to play a style in which he can literally, when he bets, everyone folds.
He can push everyone off any hands.
Anything, yeah. And as we've said, it's a theoretical but you know, conceptual situation in which if you make a bet, if every time you bet everyone folds, you'll always win money at poker. Yes. You'll always take the blinds or whatever's in the pot or whatever.
And if they don't fold, he screams at them.
Right. So what's happening is those 2 players are creating image. Now, to come back to Ken Snappett, what's interesting is that, I mean, he still plays on the television table, so he's not using this in a manipulative way. But when you get an image like that and your name becomes synonymous with something, that's what branding is, right? And whether you're Devilfish or Hellmuth or TJ or Ken or Johnny Chan has a strong image, Gus Hansen obviously has a strong image, whatever that image is that you've built up, it's so valuable. You've paid for that image sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you've made negative expectation plays in order to get that image, but you can then use that image all the time. So, you know, Ken does now play a game which capitalises on that very tight image. Yeah. He still plays on the television tables, and we're very glad that he does. But it's a very interesting thing. We had someone say the other day, you know, Caspar the tightest player in Newcastle. That's because I earned that image in Newcastle, and it served me well, because in the later stage of that tournament, you can then start making plays. Yes,
and people will still believe at that point that you're playing with a good hand, even if you're playing with something.
That's right. Which is the opposite, and I liked being a contrarian, and James Browning used to play this way as well. Is the opposite of the dominant paradigm in Newcastle, which is to play very loose early on, and then very tight later on. I did the complete opposite, play very tight early on, because I didn't want to have that number of rebuys, didn't have that kind of bankroll, because to play, you know, $50, $100 tournaments with rebuys extending it to full £500 £500 tournaments, you know, you've got to have a serious bankroll, more actually than a lot of those players have. Yeah. So So yeah, that's image basically, and that's how it's something that takes a long time to develop. And anyone who thinks that they come down and sit at a poker table and develop a tight image by not playing for 30
But they do
hands,
stick once you have it. They
do.
Yeah,
That's right. It takes a very great deal to get rid of an image. But if you're playing online poker and you don't use the chat box, barring someone using Poker Tracker, which of course will tell the correct picture, not the image pic that you want to project, but the correct picture, how do you create an image? That's something that you need to ask yourself. Just because you'd like people to see you a certain way doesn't mean to say they're going to see you a certain way. So I think this is a big question that people have to ask if they really think their image is at odds with their style, which it should be. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to get some emails on that actually. If you'd like to make a comment about that, send us an email, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk, or you can text as well. There's the email address, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. And the text, 84222, make sure you put the word poker at the start of your message.
Pair of jacks there in the cutoff. Raise-tastic, 8 times the big blind. Clearly pool 8 ball is a player who believes that he doesn't want to play jacks on the flop, which is not my philosophy at all.
That bet is big enough to say he doesn't want to call. I know I'm Not a Minger has gone all in.
Yeah, very interesting play. Now, I'm Not a Minger on this occasion has flopped the nut flush, so nothing that pool ball can do from the turn. What do I make of that? What's I'm Not a Minger saying? We haven't seen, well, we've seen 2 hands that I'm Not a Minger, but characterising for me as not much more or less than a maniac, actually. Pool ball can pretend that he's on tilt now, which is a good situation, and that's very important. That is a very important consideration, is to say people will think I'm on tilt now. Now I can put 8 times the big blind in and look like I'm really on tilt.
So if you're in a situation where you lose a hand, you lose a fair amount of money, and then you get a decent hand afterwards, you've got to use that to your advantage. And
it's a great situation, although it hasn't worked at all on this occasion. No. Interestingly, both the pair of 4s and the pair of 5s folded. And I just say one thing, folks, and I mean this genuinely, that, okay, I've said something there and it hasn't worked on this occasion, but it's really important in poker not to play one-off resulting situations.
Yeah.
We've had the pleasure of seeing, or the privilege of seeing, that one person had a pair of 4s, one person had a pair of 5s. We get all this information that they don't get in the game, and we know they folded. Okay, fine, so we know that. But that doesn't mean to say that in that situation, played out over 100 times, players sitting there with 4s and 5s wouldn't call because they think that he's tilting. And in fact, the one thing that I would do if I was pool ball, as soon as I look down and see those pair of aces, is just write something in the chat box about the previous hand.
Yeah.
Just write something.
So you look distracted. You look like you're still dwelling on the last hand.
Just swear. Or just say what the hell are you making that crazy call for?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons, honestly, genuinely, truly, why it's more difficult, I find, to play poker in a community of people that you like, because once you start playing like that, for me, it's not cheating, but it treads a line. I wouldn't want to do that. I could do that to best mates like Nick, right? I could do that to people I don't know, but I actually find it quite difficult to do that to people in the middle ground.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You need to take no prisoners, and if you're very friendly with the people you're playing with, it's difficult to do that.
I think so. I think it's a difficult situation. Hutch making Irid make a decision, which is good. We like that. And Irid puts it down, which I think is the right decision. Here's a phrase, folks, I would say. It's a beginner's night, so this isn't particularly high-level advice, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. As regular viewers will know, I teach a lot of people how to play poker on corporate away days and the like. And one piece of advice which I think really hits home when you're teaching people to play poker is make bets that make other players make decisions.
Okay.
The most common mistake that I find that players completely new to the game make is that they make bets that it's just too easy to make a decision about, right? And in fact, what's fascinating, because I say this all the time, is that people have an onboard computer, right? So whilst, let's say the pot is 25, right?
Yeah.
And people will so often bet 2 into a pot of 25, and then someone else will literally raise it to 4 into a pot of 25, right? And what happens is, or let's say bet 1 into a pot of 25, and someone raises it to 2 into a pot of 25. What happens is that the guy who bet 1 doesn't have a decision to make, and therefore he calls it, right? Now, neither of those players, during their first or second experience of poker, are thinking about the pot odds, right? Neither of them are thinking about, you know, what sort of a decision they've put someone to in that situation or when it's correct to call. But there's a subconscious part of their brain that it sees a pile of chips and it knows that it's cheap to call, right? And then make the call. Yeah. So for me, whether you're bluffing, which you should do rarely, playing most styles of poker that you've got to learn from books, or whether you are betting with the better hand, which is what you're doing the majority of time when you start playing poker, that bet should be a bet that's sizable enough to make the person think about it.
You want them to be in a dilemma. You want them to, oh, I don't know what to do, should I? Yeah.
Or, ideally, you'd like it to be an easy decision that's actually incorrect.
Yes.
Okay? But that's so rare that you're going to find yourself in that situation that, you know, you can discount that. Most of the time, you want people to have a struggle, because if they don't, then the easy decision has been the obvious decision.
Yeah.
So make bets that make other players make decisions. And particularly because making bets that make other players decisions puts them on that kind of knife edge that allows you to manipulate them in the future. And one of the things that Nick and I talked about a lot last night is the fact that good play, I think, is becoming less and less about becoming a better player and more about throwing other players off their game.
Yeah,
which is what brings us back to Devilfish.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've got an email from Graham in Macclesfield who says, I'm off to Las Vegas next week to hopefully play some live tournaments. What advice could you give to someone entering live, single and multi-table tournaments for the first time? It would be fair to say that the prospect of having people watch me as I play my hands has already got me a little nervous.
Well, did you play your first sort of big live game?
Yeah, I did.
And what did you think?
I basically sat and didn't play many hands at the start and just watched everything, took it all in and just absorbed the whole atmosphere. And because it was my first live tournament, you know, coming first wasn't exactly my top priority. I just wanted to get the experience and sort of see how I coped in that environment. So because I was a little nervous as well at the start, I just didn't play many hands, even though I had some which online I probably would have got involved with, until I was confident enough that I knew how everything was working and I was confident with the etiquettes and everything like that, and then started to get involved.
Okay, interesting. And the reason why I asked Lyndsay is because, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way at all, it's a very long time since obviously I played my first live game. But I can remember it vividly. I remember it was in the, vividly, I was in the Luxor, and then the second one was in the Excalibur. So where are you going to actually play? In fact, they're 2 fun rooms, or they certainly were when I was there in Vegas. What's interesting is that what is factual medically is that your body will be releasing a lot of adrenaline. Okay, there are 2 ways to reduce the amount of adrenaline that your body releases. Number 1, there's lots of ways rather, but there are 2 interesting, obvious ways. Number 1 is to drink alcohol, because alcohol is a suppressant which reduces your bodily responses to everything. Number 2, if you can get hold of them, although this is probably cheating, is beta blockers. Beta blockers basically suppress the body's production of adrenaline. Because what is adrenaline doing? Adrenaline is making the heart beat faster, it's making the blood pump around the body more, which makes you shake, makes your cheeks go red, it accentuates all your bodily responses. So adrenaline, when you're playing in a live game, is your biggest enemy. That's what you want less of. So beta blockers would give you these effects. So what you're trying to do is reduce the production of adrenaline. All right? And why is the body producing adrenaline? Because it's in a fight or flight mode. And why is it in a fight or flight mode? Because it's responding to something which has a number of characteristics in poker. Number 1, it's quite pressured, you feel quite viewed, and number 2, it's quite new. So one of the 2 things you're trying to do is make it less new, so sit in the room beforehand and watching people, and make it less pressured with your knowledge of poker.
Because it's the fear of the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, we've got to go to a break quite soon, haven't we? So I'm going to come back to this question after the break.
We will come back to it, Graham.
But
we've got more emails as well, so stick around and come back after the break. We'll answer Graham's email again and get some of the other ones as well. So see you soon. Welcome back to Poker Night Live. It's Lyndsay and Caspar with you till 2 o'clock. Lots more poker coming up for you. We've got a really good sit and go to soon. Before we left for the break, though, we had an email off Graham in Macclesfield. I know he wants to go back into that. He's going to Vegas to play in his first live game. He's a bit nervous. Lots of things worrying him about it. So
Sleepless nights.
Sleepless nights. He wants a bit of advice on what's the best thing to do. Okay,
so we talked about reducing adrenaline. We said you could do that by alcohol, you could do that by beta blockers, or you could do that by changing what the body's responding to. Because the body's responding because it's scared. It's scared because it's a new situation. It's scared because it's under pressure. So we're going to make it not a new situation, because what we're going to do is we're going to sit in that poker room. If you've got any mates who are going to play, then don't be too proud. Just say you're just going to sit behind them for a couple of hours and just sit watching the cards, watching other people, just getting used to the environment for a bit. And you will still experience fear when you're in that environment. It takes days, weeks, sometimes months for all that to wear off and it to become a completely normal thing, but it does. And the reason I started all this by saying that I asked Lyndsay, because I was trying to remember what it's like for my first live experience, is because I said this before, when I first played Beat the Presenter, I was really nervous. You know, it was a really sort of, all of us were kind of, ooh, you know, we're playing the audience, what's going to happen, what if we go at first live tournaments? And what I realised was that what adrenaline is doing is, all right, it's priming your body for that fight or flight response, but what it's not doing is it's not allowing you to make good quality decisions in your frontal lobes. The reptilian brain down here is fantastic for fight or flight, but it's not good for analytical decision making. So you want to reduce the flow of adrenaline and you want to make it a familiar situation. But here's the second thing you want to do, is you want to take the pressure off, right? One of the reasons why you have pressure on you is because you're treating the poker that you're playing in that room as an outcome-based situation, outcome-based judgment. In other words, you want to win or you don't want to lose against other people. And what I would advocate, I can't speak tonight at all, what I would advocate is changing the emphasis of your goal from an outcome-based goal to a process-based goal. In other words, you're not trying to win money, okay? That's really, really important. So if you're not trying to win money, what are you trying to do? Well, the first thing you're trying to do is have fun.
That was exactly what I thought my first one. It wasn't about trying to come first, it was about enjoying the experience and learning about live tournaments.
Absolutely. And this is why genuinely I'd advocate having a few drinks, because don't sit down in that poker room the first time and, you know, sit there sober and sit there shaking and worrying about what hands you've got, because you're worried about, you know, you want to make money or you want to set a good impression against 9 strangers that you're never going to meet again. Sit there and enjoy it, and I guarantee you'll accelerate your learning process 10 times. So process goals. The first process goal is to enjoy it. The second process goal might be to count the number of aces that you have. The third process goal might be to mask your good hands by pulling silly faces. Right? And you could enjoy the process of doing that just by pulling silly faces. Another process goal might be just to keep a completely stoic, what they call poker face. Not because you're going to win money by keeping a poker face, but just going to be able to practice doing that. Another process goal might be just to look at the faces of one specific person in every single hand that he has and try and read him perfectly. And again, you're not doing that as a means to an end, to maximise your winnings, you're doing it as a process goal, okay? So you're taking the pressure off yourself. And if you can do those two things, if you can slow down your body's adrenaline, 3 things, slow down your body's adrenaline producing mechanism, make the surroundings more familiar and less new and scary, and take the pressure off you to win, you will be able to make better quality decisions. And here's the thing about process goals, shh, don't tell anyone, certainly don't tell your brain, but when you're focusing on the process goals, you tend to achieve your outcome goals quicker and more effectively. But you've got to con yourself and just tell yourself, first of all, that's not important.
Not even think about that,
Yeah. So those would be my piece of advice. And then I'm just going to say the one old thing that I always say for your first live tournament, take your time.
Yeah, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Have a good time. Well, Graham, good luck with it, and I hope you enjoy it. I've got an email from Camawhoop, who says, what would be your advice for this situation? First hand of the final table of a 1,000 player free roll. The real prize money jumps came for 4th to 3rd, 2nd to 1st. I had 39,000 chips. The blinds were 4,000 and 8,000.
So it's got 5 times the big blind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Under the gun went all in for around 40,000. I was in 3rd position with ace-jack suited. I figured an under pair was likely. Ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack, very possible. Outside chance of ace 10, king, queen jack, queen jack, or a total bluff with the blinds arriving. I called. Would I have been better waiting, if necessary, for any 2 live cards, then pushing myself?
Come on, Whoop. I'm going to be honest with you. That was a terrible play. Sorry. Should I say that?
I think he wants you to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I don't mean you're a terrible player, and I don't. That's why you're emailing in. The whole point of this situation on this final table is, what have we said? You've watched the show, hopefully for the last 2 nights. When you're short stacked, you're waiting for premium hands. In fact, when you're short stacked, what you really want to be doing is winning the blinds uncontested. You just want to sit there winning blinds while other people knock themselves out. And if you're constantly winning blinds and the blinds are going up, then you're constantly winning enough to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Calling with ace jack in 3rd position when there's still 6 people to act behind you who may well have better hands, let alone the first player going all in for exactly the same as much as you, is a terrible play. And I'm only passionate about it because I don't want you to do it again. When you're there on that final table, again, if you didn't hear me yesterday with Nick, you're looking for one of 2 situations. You're looking for a situation where the cards give you a massive edge, or where the situation gives you a massive edge. And on this occasion, you don't have a massive edge with your cards, and you sure as hell don't have a massive edge with this situation, because you've already conceded all these different hands which he could have when you're banged to rights. You're completely beaten, you're dominated. So that call in that situation, terrible, terrible play. Where might it be? What would you have gone all in with? I mean, I might even have folded ace-king in that situation, because genuinely what you're trying to do in that situation is let other people knock themselves out. I bet you're all short-stacked. I mean, you haven't given us a detailed understanding of where the other blinds are, but you're all short-stacked. Why would you even put your future in this tournament on a 50-50 shot? If you've got ace-king, if he's got a small pair, you're on a 50-50 shot. I don't think he's going to go all in with ace-10, to be honest with you.
And we don't know the outcome, but it's irrelevant.
The outcome is totally irrelevant. I mean, I hope you won. But that bad play. In fact, I hope you lost, because I hope you had an emotional pain from doing that and don't do it again. But Cameron, I'm only saying that, mate, and thank you very much for emailing in, because I want you to make the first place next time of that free roll. Congratulations to get to the final table at all. What else we got?
An email of Daniel Smith. Or Smythe, who says, "Hi guys, love the show. I just wanted to ask Caspar if he has any advice on playing limit cash games. I've recently created a bankroll of about $800 through playing $3 to $6 limit and $1 no limit. Although I know this bankroll is nowhere near sufficient to play at this level." He's just preempting
my nagging, isn't he? That's all he's doing.
But he's answering his own question already. It's insufficient to play at this level. I've had good success at 3-6, and when feeling good, have played $5, $10 and fared well. I do, however, find that players will call no matter what chasing cards, and therefore find it hard to read them. Even if I have a hand such as King 10 and catch a 10 high flop, I will bet and nearly always get callers into the river. Do you have any advice on how to play against such players? And do you feel playing limit cash games is more profitable for solid players? Not a great example, but any advice would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, right. Some really good points there. Here's my first point. First point is about the bankroll, right? Just to touch on that. You are playing. You do have a bankroll is too small for the limits that you're playing at. So the important thing to say there about this, Daniel, is that you could be the best player in the world and you will go broke at that limit with that bankroll. There's an interesting podcast of Chris Jesus Ferguson turning $1 into $20,000 by working his way up through the limits. And he starts off on $1, he's playing 1 cent, 2 cent. And the reason why I think it'll be interesting is because I bet he stays on $1 until, I'm sure he sort of like quadruples his stack through very, very quickly at that 1 cent, 2 cent limit. We talked about how much easier it is to make those massive returns on your money in the smaller limits by waiting for these times when you have a huge edge and then pushing or calling someone all in, and you, basically, when I say huge edge, I mean you've got the nuts, an infinite edge. In this situation, even if you're Chris Jesus Ferguson, if you're playing 3-6 with an $800 or 5-10 with an $800 bankroll, you will go bankrupt at some point. Okay, and so the point is that 800, is that your only bankroll, or do you have some more under the mattress which you're prepared to pay to play poker with at some point? Okay, next point about limit play. I agree with you that you will get players call with anything. You'll have the king 10 and you'll catch a 10 with a high flop and you'll get callers until the river. The fact is you want callers until the river if you're out kicking them. But if you've got top pair, well hang on, there's lots of different factors here. Right, so the first factor is with limit poker, you're bluffing so much less often. The theory of poker contains a very good analysis of of bluffing in limit poker, and I think limit poker, Hold'em for advanced players does as well. But at the end of the day, the bluff has to be very profitable. It has to contain a very high likelihood that they'll fold because they're usually getting such excellent pot odds.
Yeah.
So usually they're going to be correct to call anyway. So it's very difficult and usually incorrect to try and bluff in limit poker. So most of the time you're doing what we advocate as being the solid poker strategy, which is putting your money with the best hand. Now, then we come to the second point, which is that if you're playing king 10, which is that an okay hand, then you hit the top pair. If you're playing heads up in that situation, then you should bet out. And if you get raised, then you need to make a decision based on the texture of the flop. And as we said earlier on, when the guy had a pair of jacks and there was a queen and a king on the flop, you have to say to yourself, if the flop comes down 10-8-2 and he re-raises you, what can he be playing? Well, he could be playing 10-8. Did he raise before the flop? That's unlikely, unless he's a maniac, in which case we may have to put him on a pair of 8s or a pair of 10s. Okay, but if we're doing that, then would he re-raise on the flop with trips? If he's that kind of player, then we might. If not, then we might put him on ace-10, or maybe he's re-raising with top pair, in which case we'll call him. So we're making all those decisions right there and then. All right? That's heads up. Once you're playing against 3 or 4 players, top pair on the flop is not a great hand. It's not a great hand. And it stands a very good likelihood of being second best now, so betting out with it is not a good play.
And that's just with the flop down.
That's just with the flop down. And certainly second best by the river if we're talking about a lot of players who will definitely call. And in limit poker, they will definitely call. So when you're talking about limit poker with 5 or 6 or 7 players seeing the flop sometimes, they're totally normal situations. You're looking at a situation in which what you want to be playing is premium but drawing hands, and playing them all as drawing hands. In other words, a pair of aces needs to trip up, because a pair of aces by the river against 6 callers is not going to win. Aces up on the river against 6 callers is rarely going to win. It's going to be the flush and the straight and the full house. So a pair of aces you want to turn into at least 3 of a kind or a full house. And that's how you play limit poker against a number of players. You almost play it like Omaha, where you have the nuts or you have a draw to the nuts. And if you don't have one of those two things, if you've got that top pair situation, that's the absolute killer. The nuts or a draw to the nuts, or very close to the nuts in those situations. And without those, with these 5-6 player multi-way pots, the fact that you may be ahead right now is irrelevant, because you also may not be, and you're also playing against a lot of players who combined have an advantage over you, and because none of them will fold, you're therefore making a negative expectation bet. And that, if you can handle that, folks, is a really high-level poker concept.
Well,
which will make you a lot of money. That's the point.
Yeah.
It'll make you a lot of money, because that's people's big problem with limit poker. Yeah, and it's only when you get to 10, 20, 20, 40, 40, 80 that limit poker goes back to being a heads-up game, like the no-limit poker, and much of what Slansky and Malmuth write actually makes sense. In fact, at the beginning of Theory of Poker, when they state their fundamental theorem of poker, which I won't state here, Hugh Dead Spiders cited a flaw in the fundamental theorem of poker, and Mason Malmuth and David Sklansky actually concede it themselves. They say this does not hold true for certain multi-way pot situations. And most of the stuff you're going to play in 3-6 Hold'em is a multi-way pot situation. So how relevant is the theory? Rant over.
Very relevant. There you go, Daniel, anyway. I hope that's helped you out, and thank you very much for your email. If you've got a question for Caspar, then he loves it. Send them in to us. He wants to hear from you. You can text us in the studio, 84222. Make sure you put the word poker on your message, or you can email, like Daniel did, and there's the address. It's poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Right then, how do you fancy bit of a $20 tourney?
Very much so, yeah.
Fancy that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there it is.
Look at that.
Look at that.
You haven't heard that for a while, have you, eh?
No, I haven't actually. Not for a while. So $20 to buy into this tournament, Mr. Wiggly.
I think you'll find it's Caspar.
So, still got 8 players.
Eat my ace. Yeah.
You're still going on about that.
Yeah. So, Lyndsay.
What did you want me to say when you said eat my ace? I'm interested to know, actually.
I don't know,
You're so shocked by my response.
Something like, what are you going on about, or eat your what, or...
Just something.
Yeah. Tell us about working on the radio. As some of the more astute viewers will have realised, I say astute because you'll be viewers? Radio viewers.
Listeners.
Listen, I can't talk.
Listeners.
I was good last night. I was, ironically, a lot more articulate.
Well, okay, it must be me.
Perhaps I just thought I was more articulate because I was in a happy mood.
Yeah, it's because you were having a conversation with an equally intelligent person and now you're stuck with me tonight. That's the problem.
I don't think that's what it is. I think I could just string 2 words together last night. So, our more astute viewers will have listened to you on 5 Live.
Some of them have, yes.
Yes. Have you received emails from viewers of Poker Night Live?
I have, actually.
Have you received traffic report emails from viewers of Poker Night Live?
No, I haven't received traffic reports.
Come on,
once,
chaps.
But they've made some comments on the forum which have been very nice.
They have.
Yes.
Now, here's what I want to know, right? Do you know how the traffic reports happen on 5 Live?
Yes.
And previous traffic reporters have made it seem like there's a community of like about 30 or 40 truckers who are always phoning in.
Yeah.
You don't take the calls personally, do you?
No,
just get a piece of paper.
I have an answer phone service.
And what does it transcribe?
Well, they just leave a message and I listen to them back.
Do you?
Yes.
Excellent.
So they do phone up and leave messages, although a lot of the time they phone up when they haven't got a signal. It's like, east, but...
Then do you hear like the crunch of metal and flesh and glass?
Sometimes they phone up and say, M40 to hang up. Why do you...
Brilliant, what else? What else do they say? Give us some other messages.
Some of them you just can't understand. And sometimes they'll phone up and say, I've been stuck on the A25Z7 in Devon for 20 minutes and you haven't even mentioned it once. Can you please try and do your job properly? And of course it's a national radio station. You've got 45 seconds to do a bulletin, which they probably don't realise. So of course you're going to concentrate on the motorways and prioritise. But if you don't mention a crash in a back street in someone's hometown, they phone up and tell you that you're not doing your job properly.
Let's get back to the game.
Yes, let's do that.
But talk about more traffic.
See, the problem is that because it's BBC, people think they've got more right to criticise because they pay a licence fee.
We all own a share in it, Lindsay.
Yeah, that's what they do. They're so much more critical than they are on commercial radio because they think they own a piece of you.
Yeah.
So if you don't
mention...
mention...
they do, Lindsay, we do.
The back alley in Bournemouth where there's been like a push bike accident or something.
I own your necklace. I like to think that's my licence fee.
Is that the base?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any regular callers in who you sort of know, like a sort of Ken Snappett type character?
No, not yet.
No?
I haven't sort of come across the same ones, but you do.
Do they talk to you personally? Do they say, hi, Lyndsay?
Some of them do.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even leave their name. Some of them are very polite.
They don't know how pretty you are, though, do they? Because it's radio. Unless they watch
radio.
PNL as well.
Yeah, maybe. Some of them
Perhaps
might.
that's a good thing, otherwise you might get the odd nutter.
Yeah.
I'm on the A4. I'd like to see you.
That could be a bit wrong. Don't scare me.
No, I'm not trying to scare you. It's a consideration, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I've not got regulars, but most of them are sort of like you can tell they're truckers by their voices. That's very stereotypical.
It is very stereotypical, and it's almost too stereotypical for me to let it pass. How can you tell they're truckers by their voices?
They just sound it.
Do they sound like they're wearing string vests with hankies on
and
their
you know
heads?
the truckers, because the truckers are the ones who leave the message and tell you exactly what you want to know.
Yeah, see?
And they know the direction, they know which junction it is, they give you all the details.
That's right.
Whereas some people will phone up and say, there's been an accident on the M6.
There's been an accident!
On the M6, and it's like, well, where? Which direction?
A woman's dead.
What's happened?
She's standing outside my window.
No, you're not allowed to say if it's a serious accident or not, because who are you to say it's a serious accident?
Is that a BBC directive?
It must be.
It sounds like a European
An
directive.
accident is
to
an
me.
accident. It's not up to you to judge how serious it is.
Do you report on lots of lorries losing their loads?
Yeah, shed loads. I've had lots of those. Lots of blowouts.
Do you know what? In all my time of driving, which is, 17 years, never seen a lorry shed its load
Have you
live.
not?
No, I've heard about it many times on the radio.
We had one shed paper.
I want to see some funny
And
stuff.
the best one I had was a lorry which dropped a Challenger tank on the road. This is true, it was on the news. It actually dropped a tank on the road and the whole area had to be shut down while they recovered this tank.
Did the lorry driver go, oh, God, drop the tank. I'm going to get killed for this.
Can you imagine how much it cost
Can't
though
believe.
to sort that out?
Dropped it again.
How do you drop a tank off a lorry?
Sounds like the feed line for a joke, Lyndsay, I don't know. Remove their hats. King 10 will fold here, and let's have a look at see which Ace 10 wins the Battle of the Kahunas. Will the 10 of diamonds feel more empowered? Oh, it's checkety check. Were they both scared of the flush there?
Blankety Blank was on tonight. It reminded me.
Did you watch it?
Yes.
Did you?
Chantal was on.
Was she?
And the thing was, when the Queen goes out in the morning, she always makes sure she has her pair of lovely white blank gloves. Is obviously the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh,
Is
okay.
the Queen
I was
always
thinking
wears
corgis.
white gloves. Well, Chantal said socks. It was a special version for the Prince's Trust.
Right. Who else was on it?
Jonathan Ross,
Excellent.
which was, and one of the other questions was William and Harry being such good army boys every night, always polished their blank. So of course Jonathan Ross said helmet.
He's a wag. Judge JP on the button, betting out with the top pair. King high, Sham must have had somewhere better to be by calling that pre-flop raise from a small blind with ace 3. He's not a regular viewer of the show, is he, folks? He knows that if he did that, he would know if he did that too often here, he'd have me to answer to.
Yes.
And I don't take kindly to that. Pair of nines. Now, Swing Greco has about 50 times the big blind there, so getting on for the right amount of big blindage to be able to. It's just I'm making up as I go along.
Yeah, it works though. It works.
Let's say that it does. And he can, well, he's got a decision to make now. And basically, at the end of the day, Mr. Wiggly's bet out from first position. So unless Mr. Wiggly is a nutter, we can safely assume he's got an ace, and therefore we can fold. Unless Mr. Wiggly is making a decision based on the premise that he would only bet out with an ace, but he wouldn't bet out with that into a field of 3 or 4 callers. Therefore, we can assume he's got an ace.
Judge JP needs a 5, but the 80's too much.
Yes, and Judge JP had just the kind of straight draw there that whilst he was only drawing for 1 card, probably did give him the implied odds. And why did he give him the implied odds? Because his hand would have been fairly hidden. He would have been a very good player indeed that put him on a straight in that situation and folded to him. Delhi Siri, I don't know how to pronounce that, raises it up with the 8s. And Mr. Wiggly may well live to regret calling with the ace 3 on the button.
And this is a different structure of Tawny on P&L. It's the longer structure.
And I'm glad someone told me that, because I'm staring at these numbers and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm quite tired, but they don't add up to 8,000. Right, and why is this?
And it's 12-hand blind risers, and it's to stop them being as quick and dramatic.
Crapshooty.
Yeah.
Really?
And I actually played one of these as my last Beat the Presenter.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed it. Because it was so much more settled earlier on, and there wasn't.
I'd be playing so loose early doors.
Yeah, it was very, very different. But that's why
Keep going.
It goes on a lot. It goes on a lot longer, but
Oh,
that's why
excellent.
it didn't add up because they started with 2,000 chips.
Okay, that's great.
And got more room to manoeuvre, I guess.
Good stuff.
Do you like that structure?
Yeah, I do. Well, I mean, anything that improves it. I mean, I wonder whether it was in response to P&L feedback.
Could well be. Could well be, because of course we always listen to our viewers here on P&L.
Well, it's not a question of us listening to our viewers. It's a question of the powers that be at the poker sites listening to the show.
Possibly.
So very interesting. Player power, folks. You know, I'm all for it. I had a little swear in the forums a few weeks ago. When
Swear?
Yeah. I got very angry with poker managers and their arrogance.
Prince William swore on TV tonight.
Did he?
He said a B word.
When?
He said, I'll write it down for you.
On Blankety Blank?
In an interview with Anton Deck.
Did he?
Yes, he said that. Because of the B. Ends with an oct.
She's written down a word which means when you're naughty...
You get told off.
Told off.
But it begins with a B.
Yeah, and ends with
But
a...
it just sounded wrong, Prince William saying it, in a very posh way. With his papa sitting next to him.
His papa?
That's what they call Prince Charles, papa.
That's the German in them, I'll tell you that.
It's German, it's the posh way of saying me da.
Yeah.
Anyway, the structure.
Well, I think that's brilliant.
Yes.
I'm over the moon. We should have played Beat the Presenter now. Still too late. We'll do it tomorrow.
Yes. And you get you get people staying in a lot longer, and people, I don't know, people seem to play a better game, I thought.
Yeah. They'll play a more thoughtful game. It'll be less panicked apart from anything. Pair of tens, but 2, 3, 4, 5 with a straight draw, 4 to 1, and can use a combination of position and the semi-bluff to win a hand over a favourite, and that's where the small blind is ultimately rubbish.
And Dean seemed to be in the situation that you said before, that he needed to put people in. He didn't know what to do.
Well, absolutely, Lyndsay. And let me just use that as the perfect example of what I'm talking about when I talk about the small blind. Why does the small blind have such a bad expectation? Because you can have that situation in which you have the better cards, but poker is not a game of having the better cards because you don't know you've got the better cards. So poker is a game of confidence, right? And your cards will give you a certain amount of confidence, but in that situation, it's a perfect example of where the small blind, despite having the better cards, has the lower amount of confidence and therefore the perceived lower expectation and has to fold.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have an ace, even though its opponent doesn't have anything. So a check and a fold is all it can do, and you have to have an awesomely good read on your opponent to check and raise in that situation, because, you know, how on earth, particularly in online poker, are you going to say that he's actually got, you know, 4 to the straight and I'm winning? So you have all of that problem, and then all of the problem of, you know, the small blind's only got a 50-50 chance of having the better hand anyway. So of course it's going to have a terrible expectation.
All in all, just a bit rubbish, really.
Just a bit rubbish. Yeah. How would you pronounce that? Sween Greco?
Sween Greco, yeah. PA.
Where do people get? I
don't know. It amazes me.
I mean, Mr. Wiggly. I mean, we've all called ourselves that. For the first time,
Have we?
Don't we all? No.
No, Caspar.
Just me.
Just you.
Eat my ace. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever.
No, it wasn't that, Lyndsay.
Just got
No,
this
it wasn't that.
terrible image in my head now.
Of what?
You getting out of the shower.
Right. Well, perhaps we can do something about your contract. If you're going to say things like that about me live on air. What's that got to do with Mr. Wiggly?
I don't know, it just conjured up that image.
I've got a nice bathroom though.
Have you?
Yeah. It's all sanded marble. It's lovely. So the backdrop, you know, it's beautiful.
To compensate.
I don't like you anymore. I remember now why we haven't done a show for 2 months. 15 with the aces. I'm joking. Oh, I'm joking.
Upset though.
I'm joking. Raises it 2 times the big blind, and I love that 2 times the big blind raise. I want to get some figures on this, Lyndsay. I want to know how often the 2 times the big blind raise means I'm loaded. It obviously doesn't mean it every time. I just think that you may as well have a sign around your neck when you do the 2 times the big blind raise saying, there is a very good chance that I have aces or kings right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Aces, kings, or queen jack or 10 jack or 9-10 in early position.
It is true that, actually.
You know, if you do 2 times the big blind raise, you haven't got a pair of 9s, have you?
Or a pair of 5s.
Or a pair of 5s. Or a pair of 10s. No. You've got this silly little drawing hand which you think, I reckon I can make a little bit of money with this hand here and just steal the blinds, and then I've got a bit of a connecting hand to back me up. Or, I'm absolutely freaking loaded and I don't want anyone to fold. That's basically what you're saying in that situation. And I think you need to have a sign around your neck saying that at that point.
Yeah. That's a good thing to watch out for, actually. It's very true.
Let's look for the next person who raises 2 times the big blind now with their pair of 9s or 5s. It'll take about 5 minutes because they're going to watch this in 5 minutes' time.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to watch it in 5 minutes' time. They're going to watch it right now, but we're going to see it in 5 minutes' time.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yes,
like time travel, isn't
more
it?
sense.
It's like Back to the Future, where you go, well, when he went back to the present, his parents wouldn't live in the same house, would they?
No.
They'd have a different house.
Yeah.
They wouldn't just be like more successful, they'd live in a different house.
Yeah.
That's what my dad said. And I use that actually as a litmus test of how intelligent people are. If people think that it's intelligent to find fault in plots involving time travel, I immediately put them in a box marked stupid. It's the stupidest thing you can do is come out of a time travel film and go, actually, if that happened, well, it wouldn't have done because they wouldn't have met each other in the first place and therefore it's all rubbish.
Yeah.
Of course it's rubbish. It's a film about time travel.
Where he goes 3 o'clock and doesn't smash it or get hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah. Delisare.
Back to the game.
Who apparently won an MTT about 3 nights ago.
Delisare, good for him. 9-10 suited, ace-king suited, 6-7 suited. Well, that's interesting. Folding the 9-10 suited there. Is he saying to himself, I don't have those conditions?
Yes, which you pointed
Like
out
we
earlier
talked about.
on.
Of course, if you're raising with 9-10 suited in that situation, you're basically maybe just raising to take the blinds.
Yeah.
And you have the cards as a bit of backup, and you understand that, you know, what happens now is that the flop's going to come down and it either hits you and you've got reasonably good cards. You know, the suiting connecting nature of your cards adds some value to it, or it misses you, in which case you're playing the position. Let's just watch this. Lyndsay, sorry to interrupt that.
Queens
got
and
kings versus queens. What are queens?
Ladies.
No, I said queens. I can't talk. What's it going to be like by... Oh, poor old Sham. Now, can Sham get rid of this? This is going to be very interesting. Blumfield raises, Sham re-raises, Blumfield goes all in, right? Can Sham get rid of a pair of queens? This will be fascinating. He's got to think about it. Whatever you do, think about it, Sham. Whatever you do, think about it, because he's put you to a decision.
Yeah, he's doing
What
that.
hands would he do that with? Brilliant.
Well done, yeah.
Great play. As far as I'm concerned, Sham deserves to win the tournament based on that play alone. Folks, if you take nothing away from tonight, and that's probably the case...
He sat there, he thought about it, he asked himself the questions, what was he coming over the top of me with there? All in, what has he got?
Yeah. There's only... Well, let's put it this way. It's not a question of only 3 hands he can have. 97% of the time, figure plucked out of my arse, 97% of the time, he's going to have 3 hands, and they are aces and bang to rights, kings and bang to rights,
Possibly ace-king?
possibly ace-king. I'm calling for my future in this tournament on a 50-50 shot. And the opportunity cost is high, because I've still got more than enough chips to go on to win this tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah? So, in
Brilliant
that
play
situation,
by
he said,
Sham.
yeah.
Yeah.
And 3% of the time, I've got him bang to rights.
He could have gone out the tournament there very easily.
Yeah.
A lot of worse players would.
Definitely.
We'd like to hear from Sham, actually, wouldn't we? We'd like him to get in touch. Or if you've got any questions that you'd like to put to Caspar, then please do. You can text us, 84222. is our text number. Put the word poker at the start of your message, or you can email poker@pokernightlive.co.uk.
Do you know what I would say about that fold with queens? Here's the interesting thing, and I want this to be considered in context. Do you know what? It's one of the easiest folds in the world to make. It really is. You may as well have a pair of fours.
But most people wouldn't think that.
No. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Sham. I'm saying it's great play. But as soon as you sit down and think about it, it's the easiest play in the world. It's got to be.
Yeah. But if Sham would like to get in touch with us, I'd like to know what the thought process was that he went through before he made that fold. That would be interesting. Or did he just need a way in and quickly folded? Hopefully not. Hopefully he did what we thought.
You've got quite a rude mind tonight.
Have I?
Yeah. I forget you've got a reputation for that on this channel, haven't you?
Not for a while, until you reminded everybody.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you will call me Mr. Wiggly.
Just because my name's Horne doesn't mean anything. Means nothing. How about some pre-flop folds after this hand, Cass? Would you like that?
Very much so, yes. I eat them for breakfast.
3 8s there for Blumfeld. He's all in again. Dean has a pair of jacks and makes the fold.
Have you seen the pilot for Pirates of the Caribbean? Not
No.
the pilot, the trailer.
No.
God, it's funny.
Is it?
Johnny Depp's so funny. He's so funny. Ooh, look, that's dark.
In an interesting way.
Yeah. I love those days. I wave at them as they pass by. It's going to be so funny. Well, that was a short pre-flop folds there, wasn't it?
Did you enjoy it?
Not as much as I could have. Can we come back to it later?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we will. We will.
Okay.
I'll get it back for you, Cass, don't worry.
That's what being the host is all about, isn't it, eh?
It is.
Power.
Power.
Power of the pre-flop folds. So, what are we looking at here? Well, Blumfeld had his king, so he's taken some money off Sham, so he's sitting pretty at the moment, but Sham has made money effectively. Isn't that a funny thought there, folks? If you're just starting poker, it might be quite alien to you. Sham's made money even though he lost. He's made money because over 1,000 plays or 1,000 games of sit-and-go poker, if he plays like that every time, he's effectively making money.
Good
and
point.
by calling, he would effectively have been losing money.
Yeah. It's about the overall picture.
Mm-hmm. If he'd called and Blumfeld had ace-king, I think, for the overall picture, that would have been a loss-making play.
He's playing a winning game, yeah, but...
So, ace-king suited, in early position. I was going to say, I bet he doesn't double the big blind. Indeed he doesn't. And down it goes.
Blind's just gone up. That's the good thing about this structure, isn't it? We would have been, at the old format, we would have been probably down to about 3-4 at this point.
Yes.
Blinds would have been higher, would have been, like you say, a bit of a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm. Now, Goose there, interestingly, does just double the blind. He's got ace-queen suited. Is there some rationale for that? Let's see what Mr. Wiggly does with his nines.
Wiggles them.
Just doubling it, well, Again, what we have here, to be honest with you, I mean, taking all that information in and putting myself into Mr. Wiggly's place, we're getting into this situation, even though they've improved this structure, you still have this situation where Mr. Wiggly, what's he going to do, right? Once he's multiplied Goose's bet by 3, he's pot committed.
Yeah.
So doubling it is really the only sort of got to check this. Even though there's 2 clubs on board, you've got to check this because your head's up. At this stage in the tournament, you've got to aim for taking all of Goose's money. You've got a monster hand. No. Got to check that. Got to induce a bluff from Goose. You don't know what Goose has got. An ace or a queen might come on the turn. That's great. We're not scared of the 3rd club here.
Yeah.
We're just not scared of the 3rd club because the number of times it's going to make our opponent a flush is just inconsequential in terms of our long-term expectation.
And Goose folded.
Oh, of course he is. Yeah, I mean, definitely. If you're going to do any bet there, do a small bet that could look like a very scared bet that someone will come over the top
Yeah.
of.
That's exactly what you want.
The whole aim in that situation is to get booster bet interest,
Yeah.
because at that point we've flopped a monster.
Yeah.
We've flopped the absolute holy nuts. Of course it can be beaten, but you can't play poker in such a way you're terrified of being beaten.
Yeah.
Can't do it. And when commentators make these inane statements, which you don't hear on Poker Night Live, where they say, oh, you know, you've got to close him down there to win the hand. You don't have to win the hand. You have to win overall in your poker career.
Yeah.
You don't have to win that hand. You have to maximise your expectation.
You could have taken Goose out the tournament there.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And that's a brilliant point, Lynds, because that's exactly what you want to be doing. All right, you know, I know we're still no, we're not 9-handed, we're 7-handed because we start off at 8.
But you're still one step closer to the money.
That's right, yeah. I mean, I was saying if it's 9-handed, then taking someone out, not so important. If you're 36-handed, then taking someone out, not so important. But you're absolutely right, we're getting closer to the money. Once we get down to 7, 6, 5 players, elimination becomes key. I tell you what we are seeing, Lynds, at the moment, is a lot of hands, a lot of pre-flop hands.
Yeah.
All night, the last hour, we've seen a lot of pre-flop hands.
Especially in the very first table we watched of the MTT.
Yeah. Do you think internet poker's rigged? It isn't.
Yeah. Probably.
Eat my ace. Come on, you've got to do your part of the thing. Eat my ace.
Yeah.
Don't think you did that with much soul.
So, lots of outs for Mr. Wiggly. He's got a flush draw, he's got a straight draw. Hits the flush. Just a check from Dean. Now what does he put in? Whatever he puts in now, I think Dean's going to fold it with 4 diamonds on the board.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder what the profit maximising bet was there. He bet 640s, is he there?
Yeah. I think Dean would have put it down with anything.
Do you think?
I would have.
No, hang on, that's not the point. The point is, in Mr. Wiggly's position, he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
So we've got to commentate here as if we don't know that Dean's got 9s. Right,
yeah.
So the reality of it is he would have put it down with anything, right? But if you're in Mr. Wiggly's situation...
He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He just checked, so he could have been... Unless Mr. Wiggly was worried that he was trying to trap him, and he had a higher diamond or something, because he just checked.
Well, he didn't have a higher diamond because he had the ace of diamonds.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Mr. Wiggly's got... I didn't see a pair on board there. I could be wrong, but Mr. Wiggly's got the nuts. So all Mr. Wiggly wants to do there is maximise the money that he gets out of Dean. So we're looking for the profit maximising bet. We're not looking for the bet that's definitely going to be called, but we're looking for the profit maximising bet. Yeah? There was the king of diamonds on board, wasn't there? Yes. Yeah. Which means that the highest diamond this other guy could have had was the queen of diamonds, right? And would you be playing a queen of diamonds? You might do. What I'm saying is, would you be playing a queen as your high card? Of course you might do. Becomes less likely.
So he could have made a little baby bet and pretended he had a...
Yeah, the fact of the matter is,
what he did,
as you say, because there's 4 diamonds on the board, is Dean going to call with anything less than a flush?
No.
May do if he has 3 of a kind.
Yeah.
May do if he has 3 of a kind, right? So is his play before that streak conducive to him having 3 of a kind or 2 pairs? Yeah, I don't know actually, because I was reading an email when the hand was being played out. But if Dean had been very aggressive on the turn, particularly not on the flop, because you tend to check on the flop with 3 of a kind. But if he was very aggressive on the turn, then a sizable bet on the river might well have been called, or sort of good chance of being called. If he didn't show aggression on the turn or on the flop, then, and in fact he had that pair of 9s, which was, you know, there were overcards to it on the flop, then I think you're looking at a very small bet on the river to try and maximise your expectation. What you may do in that situation is, if you really don't think that your opponent's got anything, is to wait a very long time, I think, and then make a very small bet.
Just maybe put in 160.
160, 200, yeah.
And just try and make it look like you're stealing.
Yeah, yeah. And your opponent will call you down just to stop you from doing that. But it's very important that we say that we're not looking for a bet which will definitely be called. Simple example of this, Lynds, if opponent will call a 1,000 bet 20% of the time, yeah, let's say 1,000 bet 25% of the time, that has a higher expectation, therefore, than them calling a 200 bet 50% of the time, or a 200 bet 80% of the time. If they call a 200 bet 80% of the time, that has an expectation of 160. If they'll call a 1,000 bet 25% of the time, that has an expectation of 250.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the kind of situation or maths and thought process that you go through on those river bets. The question is, then people say, well, you know, how do I know? The two things are, more than two things. Number one is metric, data. Do you have data on this person from your poker tracker? Number two is data en masse. In other words, if you're playing on a poker site where there's no information on that particular person, what is information do you have en masse of people? And three is your experience of that particular person or of people like him. And then what you're doing is you're adjusting the aggregate, right, the overall likelihood and propensity. We've done it already tonight by feeding in the information that we got on the earlier streets. And it's all about using that information to try and hone and make our probability assessment more accurate in the reality of that situation. So, we've only lost one player, and we're at blinds 81-60. But none of these players under tremendous pressure at the moment. It's a fast game, isn't it?
You could almost make one dizzy. I've had an email off Camerwhoop, who sent an email in before. And he's come back with a response. Camerwhoop says, "Thanks again for confirming what a terrible play I made. I believe the leader to be semi-manic and should have pushed him out of it then and there. Instead, called the raise and lost a further 12k when my ace-jack made my ace-jack top pair and his queen-7 a straight."
Yeah, well, so what's interesting there is that actually the guy had queen-7. Yeah, that's the first thing to say about it. So he didn't have a better hand. So we were talking about, you know, you're going to be a 50-50 favourite at best. But that comes back to what we were saying before. So, okay, so what's the likelihood of him with the queens? What's the likelihood of having aces, kings, or ace king? I said, 93%. Maybe she's a maniac, of course. You could take that right down to what? 30%, 40%? You know, but I think if a good solid player, it's going to be 75, 80% that he's going to have ace king. So in this situation, what's the likelihood that this guy's going to have a hand that beats ace jack? Well, he's a maniac. But even so, do you want to be doing business with a maniac on the final table in that situation? So I think, you know, he's done the right thing by folding. There are all sorts of hand possibilities that he can have, but what we're saying is that, you know, given the totality of possibilities, he's done the right thing on this occasion. Sorry, he's done the right thing in terms of the long run.
And an email from Double Top, Stephen, who says, "Will either of you be at the Poker Bowl or after show event? Be great to meet as many PNL regulars and presenters. Can either of you offer any advice for playing in a final table?"
Well, I'll be honest with you, I know nothing about the Poker Bowl. No one's told me anything about it.
No, me.
Seriously, I don't know. I don't know what it does. I go on the forums and I see I see threads about something like a Poker Bowl, PNL Members League. I don't know what a Members League is. Qualify for Telephone's Poker Bowl on Poker Night Live. I don't have a clue.
They've been playing every Sunday night in the qualifiers to have a live final here and to be filmed. So all the PNL regulars, a lot of them have been playing every Sunday on a television tournament, and they've been playing every Sunday to qualify for the final table, which is going to be televised.
I think what I'm saying is that no, I'm not going to be here. Let's put it this way, I haven't been invited.
Not
so,
yet. Not yet.
Well, I've got a busy diary.
But thanks for your email, Stephen, anyway. We'll maybe talk about final tables a bit more when we come back.
Oh, are we going to break?
We're going to a quick break, so stick around. We'll have more emails when we come back. Welcome back to Poker Night Live. I'm Lyndsay, joined this evening, or this morning as it is now, by 1 minute, by Caspar.
Hi.
Hi. We're here with you till 2 o'clock watching live internet Texas Hold'em, and Caspar's giving you commentary throughout the games. Also, it's your show, we are fully interactive and you decide what we talk about. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to send through to us, you can text us here in the studio. There's the text number, 84222. Put the word poker at the start of your message. Or you can email. And there's the address. It's poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Now, before we went to the break, we're going to get back to our tournament very soon, but before we went to the break, we had an email from the double top, Stephen, who was talking about the final of the Poker Bowl, and he really just wanted some advice on playing in a final table. We just kind of touched on his email before the break, so...
Yes.
Advice for final tables.
Okay, well, the first thing is, final table is a mixed bag and a broad church, isn't it? If you mean by final table, when you get to the final 10, then the key at that point, when you get to that final 10, is to slow right down. And I'll tell you why, is because everyone else will panic. They get to the final table, and there's something about it mentally, I know it because I've done it, where you just go, oh, he's got that much, and I got that much, and I have to go all in.
Yeah.
Right? And people will make bets that they don't need to make, and the big blinds will sit there like Buddha. Not big blinds, the big stacks will sit there like Buddha and just sort of pick them off, basically. That doesn't mean that they should make loose calls, but it does mean that they can afford to make calls with good hands. In other words, someone round the table will call with a better hand than these little aggressive players firing off all over the place. They're playing good, solid poker at that point. So unless you have a good hand, just let other people drop out. Doesn't mean to say that it'll always happen. Of course, we're talking about statistical likelihoods. That's the first thing. Now, then there's another kind of final table, isn't there? Which is in there, and that you see on your screens on WPT, which is when you get down to the last 6 players. And the last 6/5 players is a very, very different kettle of fish. At that point, we've entered this psychological realm. And by the way, when I was talking earlier on about limit poker, and one of the games of limit poker that I used to very much enjoy when the internet revolution started was 5-handed. I think some sites do 6-handed limit poker, because we talked about, you know, some flops in 10-handed limit poker being 5, 6, 7-handed, 8, 9, 10-handed sometimes. Well, when it's 5-handed, it's very rarely more than 3 people seeing the flop. Usually it's just heads up.
Yeah.
If at all. So when it gets to no limit poker, 6-handed, that becomes a very, very tricky game. And I would say that certain moves like the check raise, like the re-raise, I mean, I can sit here and say these things, but you've seen it every day on this channel and other poker channels. It's about the psychology of the game. It's about moving people off hands. You don't want to be sitting there too tight for too long. It's a mistake that actually, interestingly, I tend to make in live poker and don't tend to make in internet poker. And we can discuss the reasons for that now or later, but it's certainly a different issue. But the issue is you should not just be playing your cards once it gets to 6-handed.
Yeah.
You need to be making raises with hands that you wouldn't normally raise with. And I do think it needs to be raises, because you won't, well, I don't know, I'm guessing, you won't be too, again, there's that word, deep stacked, to make too many fancy decisions, so it's got to come through aggression.
Good.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about why you do those things now, or should we delve into that a bit
Let's come
later.
to that later, yeah.
We'll come to that later, okay. I've got another email here from Crimson King, Damo, who says, "Hi guys, I enjoy playing poker very much and make a small profit. However, I don't feel that I am maximising my profits and opportunities when online. A lot of the time, I'm not watching every hand played if I'm not involved, so I'm watching TV, eating my dinner, all that sort of stuff." And he says, "I finish university in 2 weeks and would like to make the transition to profit be my primary objective as opposed to fun. As I know you love figures, Caspar, could you please estimate the profit I lose as a percentage when multitasking? Haha. And any tips to help me with my transition would be much appreciated."
Well, I've been sitting and thinking about this email, and I really can't think of how to calculate your loss in percentage terms. Let's go through a couple of facts. I think Ladbrokes have estimated that only 1 in 9 players make a profit. So if you're making a profit in the long term, any profit at all, then that's a good thing. The second thing to understand, guys, and I know this isn't really what this question is pertaining to, but I think it's an interesting point to bring up here, is this issue of the rake. Remember, a rake is a tax on your revenue.
Yeah.
Right? It's a 5% tax on your revenue. Now, 5% tax on your revenue, if you run to a net margin of 10%, is a 50% tax on your profits.
Yeah.
Have a think about that for a moment. What other business has a 50% tax on its profits, right? So rake is a very, very, very big issue. So if you, let's say you have a 10% margin over the game, you actually end up only having a 5% margin over the game. So if you can increase that to a 12% margin over the game, you've increased from 5% actually to 7%. All right. So even though you've only increased by 20%, you've increased that margin actually by 40% from 5 to 7. Right. So once you take out the rake, if you can improve any more from the 10%, let's make it an even more extreme example. Let's say you've got a 6% margin over the game, right, and the rake takes 5% of that. If you can increase that to 7%, you've actually doubled your margin. You've actually doubled your profit, all right? Because the rake takes the 5% out, and suddenly you've gone from 6 to 7%. So you've gone from a 1% net to a 2% net take, right? So that's the effect of those tiny little margins can actually double the amount of money you're taking from poker. So that's worth thinking about. What you're doing when you're taking in the information, earlier on, Lyndsay and I were talking about what value or information we could process, or what value or information we could glean from this position, this person's early position raise, right? When there was a king and a queen on the flop. What did he actually have in that situation?
He had aces, didn't he?
Did he? Or didn't he have? Hadn't he hit the flop, or ace king or ace queen?
I thought he had aces.
Because the other guy had jacks, didn't he? And there was a king on the queen on the flop. Anyway, here's the point. The point is, if you haven't been watching a player, then all you can say about that situation is, given my experience of poker in general, and you may have poker stats to back this up, but given my experience of poker, I reckon there is an 80% likelihood that someone raising from an early position will have aces, kings, ace king, ace queen, or king queen, right? Let's say. If that person is a very, very tight player, you can adjust that 80% likelihood to maybe a 95% likelihood, and maybe even a 90% likelihood that they have aces, kings, or ace king.
Yeah.
That's the kind of value that you get from watching them, and that can massively change your next decision. It might not sometimes, but it can do. If, however, that player is a maniac, as, what was his name? Karma Whoop. As Karma Whoop's opponent was, you can say, well, actually, there's probably a much bigger basket of hands that I can put him on, and only a 30% chance. Now, if there's only a 30% chance, let's take it to the extremes. Let's say there's only a 20% chance that he's got a king or a queen in his hand. That means that even though he's bet out, there is a 4, because we remember we concluded that bet out didn't mean anything, because he would have bet out whatever he had. 4 out of 5 times he doesn't have a king or a queen, which means 4 out of 5 times I'm actually ahead here. Yeah? That's the kind of value that you can get from watching your opponents. Now, if you don't think that that can be translated in an increase of your overall edge from 6% to 7%, then you're mad. Yeah. So that kind of value from watching your players and being able to more accurately position them on the width and strength of their basket of hands allows you to have massive impacts down the line on your overall margins. And that's why poker is basically a game of concentration, focus, application, and constant feedback from your results back into your decisions.
And you are obviously aware that being distracted like you are is harming your game.
Yes, and that's fine, and he knows all
Yeah,
that, and if he's still making a little profit, that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
but
that
tiny little
is going
changes
to all add
can
up
have
in the
huge
long
impact
term.
down the line.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Well, I hope that's helped you, Damo. And a quick email from Ken Snappit, who says, I started off an email replying to your question about what hands to play, which will ensure a profit. After starting it, I decided that for beginners, this could be very dangerous. Just playing certain hands will never ensure a profit. I agree with you, with what you've often said, that just concentrating on starting hands is a very bad thing, and people spend too much time thinking about them in comparison to how they are played post-flop. The problem with just giving certain hands is you wait and wait for them and then find that you just can't put them down. It's for this reason that I think...
Bone-dogging, we call that.
Bone-dogging, that's it, yeah. It's for this reason that I think just giving a basket of hands will actually make you a loser, rather than a winner, even if they are aces, kings and queens.
Couldn't agree more with everything that's been said there.
Great point. Good email.
Can I just point out that Lisa is 27, she's an upholsterer, and she speaks fluent Chinese.
Yes, but she sounds more like Liam Gallagher.
I haven't watched it yet.
Am I? So. She's like that, how's it going? She's a proper mank.
When I was 22, my previous 10 girlfriends had all come from the Manchester Bolton area.
She talks so loud and so much, it's actually made her deaf, so she talks over everyone really loudly and then go, what? What? What are you saying? Because she can't hear anybody else.
This might be my wife that you're talking about.
Nah.
I'm just saying it might be.
She's not fit enough.
Really?
You deserve better.
I do. Let's move on.
Let's get back to the game. So this is our $20 tourney.
With a new improved structure.
Yes, the newly improved structure. As with all things in life, they're always...
improving.
Yeah.
They're not actually.
No, they're not, but they're just rebranded.
We live in a world of entropy.
They're rebranded.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh.
I had a comedy moment in the supermarket last week when a foreign man was in distress. And
How was he in distress in the supermarket?
He was standing by the toilet rolls and he asked me in a foreign accent, I've got no idea where he's from, if I could help him. And he said, do you mind if I ask you a question? And I said, no. And he said, all of these, pointing to the toilet roll, they have dogs on them. Does it mean anything? Yes, they use it to wipe dogs' bottoms. So I tried to explain to him that it's just from the advert.
Poor man. Poor man.
Stop convincing yourself that you're going to marry Lisa.
I'm not necessarily going to marry Lisa. I want to marry Nikki. I'll become a footballer and marry Nikki.
You're not good enough.
What, at football? What do you mean I'm not good enough?
She wants a Premiership footballer. That is her only ambition in life, is to marry a Premiership footballer. So you don't quite fit the bill, really, do you?
Oh, poor old Mr. Wiggly.
Oh.
Look at Sham, though, there, with 3,600 now. It's all turning out right for the boy who made the great laydown. Who do you want to put your money on, Lise? Lise? Lynns?
You've got Lisa on the brain now.
That's
terrible. That's terrible. I am going to go with Sham, purely because of the fact that he folded those queens earlier on, when a worse man would have gone out the tournament.
Okay, I really wanted Sham for
Tough,
myself.
you asked me first. Bagsies.
You're not a nice person, are you? I mean, you're a successful person.
What? I'm not nice.
So Blumfeld needs an ace or a queen, or Blumfeld goes out. Blumfeld goes out. It's as simple as that. Bye-bye, Blumfeld. Hello, Dean. 5,900. Whopping. Technical problems. It's become synonymous. The raise from the small blind there with 6-10. Stayed on a raise that Caspar's going to be making against a player who's definitely going to be calling. I mean, all right, he's calling with 6-7 on this occasion, but Swing Greco there didn't quite take account of Goose's chip stack.
So who are you having then? You're not allowed sham?
I'm going to do like they can do in British blackjack tables and bet behind you on sham.
No, you're not allowed.
Well, you say that, you didn't make up the rules of the game, and you can do it in British blackjack tables, so... Or I'll have Dean.
Okay, because he's too pleaser.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to have the skill, I'll have the muscle.
Okay.
It's a bit like life. No. My boy expertly lays down a pair of sixes.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Mr. Wiggly, bless him. 5 could help him.
Absolutely. Not a queen.
No.
The case queen.
He probably got a little bit excited there, actually, didn't he, when he saw the queen come down on the river?
You say something about Wiggly getting excited.
No, I wasn't, actually.
Are you sure?
You tried to make out it's me.
That's right, Liz, that's right. You've got this reputation because on the few shows that I've done
no
with
reputation.
that's not entirely true, is it?
One person, and you have multiplied the theory.
It's a whole thread.
What, about me?
Yes.
One person.
Being naughty.
It's only because people like you and Nick encourage me.
Yes, it is. No, there's no doubt about it. But you do rise to the debate. Like Mr. Wiggly.
No, he obviously doesn't. He's out.
Sham, laying down the 10-3. Will Delhi raise or call? Will he raise just 2 times the big blind? Will he want to call with his pair of 7s? Will he want to just take the blinds there and then? Has Sham nipped to the toilet?
Maybe.
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't a question I was urging anyone to take too seriously. Delhi moves all in. Dean calls with the ace-2, flops the ace. You may be saying goodbye to Delhi, but that's good on this occasion because the best player in the room has taken the chips. No, he hasn't. That's horrible. Some people will be saying, well, you know, Delhi went in with the best hand, etc., etc.
Still hurts.
That's poo, I say.
Doesn't make it any better.
Doesn't make it any better for me or Dean.
It wouldn't be as bad if it was on the turn.
I like that play by Delhi there. That's exactly what I'd be doing with the 10-jack suited.
Take the blinds.
Yeah, take the blinds. You know, desperate times call for desperate measures.
Buy yourself another round.
Buy yourself another round. Thank you. That's free.
Yeah.
Not free, of course, actually. Stands a risk of being called and beaten. But Delhi has pulled himself back into the game by dint of hands and talent and play. Is she intelligent, Lisa? She's an upholsterer. That's quite an original thing to do, isn't it?
It's probably a production line. She probably sits with a staple
You're so catty. You're so catty.
I know, but I think if you saw the programme, you wouldn't have asked that question.
Well, I will be watching the programme as we say goodbye to Sham. The sham of a player that he is fully deserves to go out there with his pathetic Doyle Brunson-esque ace-queen.
Ace-queen.
And we say hello to the new champion that is Dean, page 27.
He's so jammy.
He's not jammy. He'll be laying down this queen-jack, and Swing Greco powers it through with a king-queen.
So I'm going to start calling you from now on. Jammy Cass.
You're going to call me Jammy Cass?
Yeah.
Why are you going to call me?
Because you always manage to pick the winner somehow, even if
it's freakish, isn't it?
It's unlikely. Has someone told you?
No, not at all. So, we're heads up. Oh, no, we're not. What happened there? Oh, you hit 9.
300 still, yeah.
Come on, Caspar. Concentrate.
I find it really tough playing 3-handed. Not tough, I think it just requires so much concentration.
The three-handed is my absolute joy and speciality, to be honest with you.
I like it because it's fast and furious and you've got to really be on the ball.
I think three-handed is the most psychological part of the whole game.
It's quite stressful, do you not think?
Why do you think it's stressful? Let's address this.
It's so quick and...
No, it doesn't have to be quick. You're letting like the England team, when they play Italy, slow them down to their pace. You've got to play at your pace. Don't let them speed you up.
Yeah, I should be taking control.
You get whatever it is, 20, 30 seconds to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. If you want to take all that time, then you can do.
Yeah. No, you're right, actually.
I am right. And the second thing about three-handed is that it's all about reading. You don't know what their cards are going to be, but it's all about reading what two other players are likely to do.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So, I haven't been looking at this table eyes, but when you're sitting in that situation, it's about saying to yourself, are these players likely to take each other out, or do I have to make moves? And the flip side of it is, are these players likely to fold to my bets? In other words, if I make moves, will they allow me to get away with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the old other Caspar's law of last two hands played and showing hands at the appropriate time to create a certain image kicks in also.
It depends on how many chips you've got as well when you get to that point, because if you're the short stack, you can't just sit there and wait for them to knock each other out.
Well, I don't know, Lyndsay. I mean, no. All right, fine. That's definitely true. I'm not advocating waiting. But what I am saying, and what I would argue quite passionately, is that what you are trying to do is get to the heads up.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you can get to the heads up, even if you're out chipped by 5-6 to 1,
matter,
you can still come back.
Yeah.
So that 5-6 to 1 is only 1.5 doubles through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if let's say you were Delhi, all right. Now that actually the blinds have just gone up to 640. Okay, but when you were Delhi with you had 2,500, the blinds were 163.20. Yes, the blinds are coming around very, very quickly, but that could happen 3 or 4 times and you're still in the game, especially since every now and again they'll just fold to you in the big blind anyway. Yeah. You're still in the game, and you're giving these other two a lot of opportunities to knock each other out. And if after the first 2.5 rounds you just see them folding to each other in the big blind, then you can say to yourself, all right, that's the way they're going to play it, right, I'm just going to move in.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is, of course, you don't know that they're not going to have aces that on that occasion. You don't get down about that.
But if they're following that pattern, you can.
That's right. She says, I love slobbing around in my pyjamas with loads of food and beer so much you can never eat it all. Is she a bit tubby, Lisa?
Oh, we've lost Delhi.
Oh.
Up to heads up.
Is she?
Is she what?
Tubby.
No, not good. Tubby.
King 9 moves in, and Dean has got a big old stack. Would he be calling with this for a pair of 2s? Well, we know that I hate a pair of 2s, but we are getting 2.5 to 1. I mean, we're either 50-50 or we're dominated at this point. People will go all in with any hand, so the chance of them having a pair has not that much altered from 16 to 1, which is the chance of having any pair. So, you know, whilst you might say I'll be scared of the pair, the fact that someone's moved all in doesn't make us more scared of the pair necessarily. So I think a good call from Dean there, and fulfills my prediction.
Your man takes it. Good tournament?
Yeah, it was good. I like the new structure.
Good.
Yeah, it's great stuff actually. In fact, I love the new structure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I've got an email from Making Jam, who says, Lyndsay, you're looking lovely tonight. Why, thank you. And Cass, you're looking smart.
Why, thank you.
So here's my question. I have a good run recently in heads-up encounters, winning about 4 out of 5. My question is this: is there any hand that is unplayable heads-up? I'll raise with anything heads-up because the odds are at least my cards are live. If it's raised to me, I'll presume my opposition has paint, and I fold if I don't have the goods. The odds are that in any deal my opponent won't have made a hand. So what cards wouldn't you play? Presume equal stacks when you're answering this question.
Yeah, very good question, Making Jam. Actually, our very own Dr. Tom has done some analysis on this, and in the simulations that he's run, he's demonstrated that about a 75 to 80% frequency of raising, given those conditions, is absolutely correct. So you'd not be raising cards of below 6, maybe 7 high,
right,
and raising most things above that. Personally, what I tend to like to do, and we've said this many times, isn't it? And this is, God, it's so hard.
Is that when it's your turn to act first?
Yeah, yeah. If you're deep stacked, ooh, there's that word. If you're deep stacked, well, yeah, but it's so true. As Dan Harrison says, if you're deep stacked, it's so rarely incorrect it's correct usually to call from the first position because you're getting 3 to 1 on the hand. Yeah. Now Harrington says that, but the one thing that you do have to understand when we make that play is what Sklansky Mammoth call effective odds. In other words, you take your implied odds and you divide it by how much you're likely to have to put in the pot in order to get those implied odds, and that's effective odds. And so if we're playing against a very aggressive player, that can make the chances or the correctness of a call with those 3 to 1 odds from the small blind less correct.
Right.
Yeah. Because they're more likely to raise us up, and therefore it's going to cost us more to see the flop in relation to our stack. But if we're deep stacked, those calls in the early stages of that heads up become very correct. In terms of being aggressive, I personally for me, favour a slightly different style of just picking my spot. In other words, I will be very aggressive, but it'll go through fits and starts. I don't know if you find this, Lyndsay. It's what Dr. Tom calls the narrative, and it's why it's very, very difficult to teach, really. You just have to watch a lot of it, and the good thing about Beat the Presenter is we play it and we talk it through. But I will go through phases where I will do a lot of raising, and then he will take the initiative, and I will be folding, and I'll probably be folding for about 3 or 4 hands, and you have to get the initiative back again, right? The metaphor that I would use, and it helps me a great deal, is to use the image, Zen in the Art of Poker talks about this, of water, right? In other words, imagine your opponent's like a guy with a sword, right? And he's trying to stab water, yeah? So the metaphor is you just want him to just the sword's just splashing into the water. So in other words, when he uses aggression, it washes over you. You know, you just fold, and therefore he can't touch you.
Okay.
But by contrast, when you use aggression, you're like a great big vat of water which opens up and just crushes him. So when you show aggression, you squash him, right? But when he shows aggression, it doesn't have any effect. That's the kind of effect that you want to be creating heads up, basically. So what I would say is that when you're raising before that point at which you squash him, what your raises are intended to do before that are to grind him down and make him sick of you, effectively. That's what Devilfish does, is to make you sick of him, so that when he makes that big play, whether it's trapping or whether it's being very aggressive, he calls you, or he makes the initial raise in the first place without the nuts, because he's sick of your little jabs of aggression. So that's the image that you want to try. That's what really helps me mentally. Very like in boxing. In fact,
you break someone down.
That's right, with the jab, so that you then, so that they come at
waiting
you.
For the killer punch.
When they come at you, that's when you put the hook on them. And I don't know anything about boxing, so that's literally a layperson's opinion. But that's exactly what you're doing. And in fact, what's interesting, what you said there, Lyndsay, is that whether it's Sun Tzu or karate strategy or whatever it is, all these things come back to the same derivative roots. That's what you're trying to get opponents to do, is to open up, and in that moment, that's when you kill them.
Sucker punch.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. Anthony has been in touch. He says, one very quick question. How does intelligence in terms of IQ help you or hinder you in regards to becoming a good poker player? If you have a higher IQ than someone else, does this mean that you have a better chance, or does it not work like this? And he says, I really like hearing Lyndsay on the radio. I heard her this morning, in fact. Can I ask her what it's like working with my radio heroes, Peter Allen and Jane Garvey? Do any of the presenters at 5 Live discuss poker with you?
Well, don't look at me.
Sorry, I didn't know if you
she's having a great time.
Actually, Eamon Holmes does.
Does he?
Yes, he's very interested
Is he a player on internet?
Not really. No, he's interested to find out about it though, and find out about the programme. And Peter Allen and Jane Garvey are lovely. really lovely.
The
Brilliant.
number of people who refer to Peter Allen as a hero.
A radio god. He is, though. He's a legend.
But what did he do before 5 Live?
Do you know what? I don't know.
No, so he's got that legend status from 5 Live.
He's been there a long time.
Been about 8 years.
Yeah.
Drive.
He's
I mean, he's awesome. He's my
several
hero.
awards. Yeah. Broadcaster of the Year, and he's a legend.
He is. He's brilliant. You should be very honoured
and they're
do you learn
brilliant
from working
together.
with him? Do you learn from watching him?
He's just so natural, though. I think he's just got a natural gift, and I think the pair of them just are brilliant together.
What do you learn from watching me?
I learn how to eat aces.
Eat my ass.
So what about IQ then? It's quite a loaded question, really, even though that Anthony said it's a very quick question.
Okay, well, look, IQ fascinates me, and not least because I don't really know very much about it. I don't know what I'm saying. I have a high IQ, but I can't do anagrams at all. So that particular element of the IQ test, I'm awful at. Terrible.
It's like I'm a straight A student, but can't cross the road.
That's quite an impediment to living life generally, though, isn't it? What do you do?
I just don't look.
Subways.
Generally just wander out talking on the phone, but generally don't look.
My guess is that a high IQ should translate into being a good poker player. And again, I'm talking largely from ignorance here, so I don't want to answer this question. But IQ is a measure of recognising patterns, thinking relatively strategically, understanding the meaning of something, so seeing it at a deeper level than the surface level, and rearranging letters. And I don't think it should be part of the IQ test. That's the point that I'm making.
Does it mean that you have a lot of common sense?
No, it doesn't. But then you don't need common sense. You need a streetwise sense to be good at poker.
You need to have a good analytical brain, don't you?
I mean, look.
Because you have to take every individual situation as it is and
analyse
but you need to be able to,
but you need to be able to see that situation and relate it to the patterns of play that you've built up over the years. Yes, you have to be observant, and in that regard you have to have a good memory, although that's not necessarily what we mean when we say memory in lay speak, because by memory we tend to mean the ability to remember specific things like phone numbers rather than to recognise patterns, which is also what memory is about. So I think definitely yes, but can I just make this final point, which is that there's this stupid debate which ranges, which is, are you a gut level player or are you a mathematical player? And the fact of the matter is that great players combine both. And in fact, when you get a player like Chris Jesus Ferguson, and I'm not saying Chris Jesus Ferguson isn't a good player psychologically, but my point about Chris Jesus Ferguson would be, why doesn't he just play on the internet? Because on the internet he should, in theory, be the greatest player on the planet, and probably is. I mean, maybe they would concede this himself. Why does he play live games? There are big games on the internet. You can make $1 million a year if you're playing the biggest games on the internet for 12 hours a day. And Chris Jesus Ferguson's game is completely suited to that. When we think about poker players, let's take midfielders, right? And I always use this example because I haven't updated it in the last 10 years.
Okay.
But there's David Batty and David Ginola.
Yeah.
Right? Both great midfielders in their day, incomparable. Yeah? So not only are they both footballers, they're both playing in roughly the same position. We should be able to compare these two people. David Batty scores high in all these areas: consistency, commitment, hard work. Yeah. Mentally tough. David Ginola scores high in all these areas, which is flair, passion, the killer pass ball, that kind of thing. So they're totally different players, and poker players can vary in exactly the same way. So if you had a graph, some players are going to be very high up here and then low down here. Some players are going to be very high up here and very low down here.
Both do the same job as effectively.
But they're both doing the same job. Yeah, they're doing it in poker, even more similar realm, but in completely different ways. So a great player has the lot. Yeah, and that's someone like Stu Younger. He was a great player. He was a mathematical genius. He was a psychological genius. He was desperately committed to win because of his financial demands. He had a very lavish lifestyle, and of his insecurities. He needed to be a winner. And when you get it all in one person like that, you're going to find, a savant when it comes to poker.
Magic poker dust.
Yeah, but I've never seen any relationship between that and IQ particularly.
But thanks for your email, Anthony, anyway. Thank you for that. If you've got any questions that you'd like to send through to us, just like Anthony did, then you can text us in the studio, 84222. is the text number. Put the word poker at the start of your message, or you can send an email, and the email address is poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Bit of cash. Fancy a bit of cash?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
So I just thought you were slurring my name again.
25
cash,
cent.
cash.
50 cent. Cash game. Cash. So some of the players still there.
So if you had to set me up with a Big Brother girl, which one would it be?
Probably... no, not Lisa. She's not fit. She really isn't fit.
Imogen.
Imogen, yeah, probably Imogen. The Welsh beauty queen.
Is she bright?
I think she is, yeah.
And, you know, one of my 5 serious girlfriends have been Welsh.
That means you're going to fall in love and marry her.
Well, we were talking, shall we ask the viewers our big question?
Go on then.
Okay, well, my ex-girlfriend who was Welsh, and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Imogen all have these very, very dusky, dark...
Like Persian
almost
looks.
Persian looks, yes? So why does that... Smouldering, thank you. Why does that come out of Wales? What is it about the Welsh genes? What genetic or ethnic population have at some point in the last 1,000 years been into Wales and created that gene pool? Because when you think Welsh, you think small, ginger, Celtish kind of...
Like the Irish?
Yeah.
You would think similar thing.
The Welsh are Celt.
Yet they produce such beauties.
Why
Why,
is that?
Caspar? Why?
Why?
Text 84222 or email poker@pokernightlive.co.uk.
Good stuff.
It's the Welsh question. Here on Poker Night Live. So Snap It still there at our cash table. So is Earl, Pool Ball, John Boy Rebel still there. Loosey Goosey. And indeed, even if you just don't want to answer the Welsh question, you can ask anything. It's up to you. Any poker question that you have tonight, feel free to send those questions in to us, and Caspar will answer them for you with a smile on his face.
With a smile on my face.
King Queen on the small blind for Loosey Goosey. Not much for anyone else. Little Race would have taken it there.
Are we playing cash?
Yes. Do you think?
Should we do a Beat the Presenter?
Do you want to?
I do now, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, it's too late now.
You're very fickle.
I know I am. Can't be managed, can I?
No.
So many bosses have tried. What do we do with that?
I don't know, really. I suppose you just have to let you roam wild.
Like Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
A free roaming position.
A free spirit, yeah.
Zidane in the hole.
But it allows him to express his talents.
Are you excited about the World Cup?
Yes.
Are you? Do you know, it's quite weird for me because I haven't seen a World Cup for 8 years. Because last time I was in Vegas, it just completely passed me by.
I'm very excited.
I was playing poker. Like basically when it was on. I had a Filipino girlfriend who was so uninterested.
Oh, I'm obsessed. I
know
love
you
it.
are.
My boyfriend's drawn Germany in the sweepstake at work.
Really?
Yes.
So it's quite exciting for me. So there's all this talk about David Beckham hurting his foot, and that's the only game I saw was the
Wayne
Brazil
Rooney.
game.
Oh, you mean last
year.
one, yeah.
The only game I saw was the Brazil game, and I jumped up when we scored, and I had, you know, in America they give you like buckets of soda.
Yes, yeah.
I had one of those on my knee, and I jumped up, and I was at the front of the sports book in the Stardust is where I watched it, and it just poured all over me, and these Brazilians at the back just laughed.
I was doing a breakfast show in Manchester at the time, and of course it was in Japan, so all of the games were on really early in the morning, so we were on air, and of course no one was listening to our radio show at the time at all, because all the games were 7 o'clock. So
were they? Is that what they were?
Yeah, they were. Most of them were 7, 8 o'clock in the morning because it was in Japan.
Did it create a weird atmosphere?
Korea. It was really. Everyone still came out. Everyone took the morning off work, went to work late, half drunk. We moved our radio show to an Irish pub over the road where they had big screens and broadcasted from there because no one was listening to us anyway, and just talked about the football and got drunk.
Really?
Yeah.
Bit like P&L, really. Except we don't talk about the football.
Alcohol.
Oh, I see the point you're making. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was good.
Who's your money on here, Linz?
It's a cash game.
Yeah.
No. Do you mean no one's going to get knocked out unless?
No, but
they can come back.
Who do you think's going to make lots of money?
Snap it.
Yeah.
Snap it. Queen King is Queen.
Got any emails?
Comment through on the text. Not sure how accurate it is though. It says only been playing poker for 6 months, but you at PNL are ace.
Oh, that's nice.
Bless.
Do we have a name?
No, it's just a text with no name on it. No name. And I've got an email from Sam, who's got a few ideas that I'm going to run past you. He says you may think they're dumb, but one of them works and one I haven't tested yet.
We have to guess which one. Okay.
So, Sam says, the first one is slow playing on a 5-player sit and go where 3 players get paid. On single tables, where the blinds only go up every 10 or 20 hands, people get increasingly frustrated and start getting involved in pots that they wouldn't usually do by letting the clock tick down to the last second before making your move. It may increase your position in these single table tourneys. That's
good.
The first one.
Yeah, that's fine. I like that. That's
and
good.
The second one, my second thought, is kind of like betting patterns on roulette tables, where you double your bet when you lose until you win, then start over. Basically, you sit at a 5-10 cent table and go all in for the maximum buy-in every hand until you're called and double up or lose. If you win, you have doubled up, and if you lose, you move to the 10-20 cent table and do the same. Keep doubling the blinds until you eventually win your all in, and then start again at 5 to 10 cent tables. My thoughts are that even if you have ace-7 versus aces, so you are at a slim percentage, if you're on your 10th try, statistically, you should win one of those. Surely this is a winning strategy that will mean eventually, in the long run, you should make money. These are my ideas, but are they good or just total rubbish?
Oh, I think they're very interesting, actually.
It is interesting, isn't it?
I mean, the problem with...
Because I've heard that thing with roulette before, where people do that.
Yeah.
Where they just keep doubling up.
Yeah. What's the problem with it, Linz?
That you could actually not win and keep doubling up.
Yeah, you could need all the money on the planet.
Yes. To actually eventually...
to break even. A friend of mine worked out that he could get his hands on $2 billion. Quite a wealthy man anyway. Could go to a lot of investors and get his hands on $2 billion. But he worked out that we would be putting $2 million into our bankroll, because that's what it would be, in order to make the possibility of about $10 a night. Right. So
Not very lucrative.
Yeah, we ended up getting the giggles that was going to be our business plan that we would take to investors, which is you couldn't lose, but you would make about $10 a night. And there's probably better things you can do with your $2 billion.
They probably decided to keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
Or give it to someone else.
And even then, actually, we couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't lose it all. So that's the problem with that. But yeah, you may. The same thing would still apply. You may need a very, very large bankroll, in fact, to make that work. But I think they're good thoughts. I certainly like the first one. I assume the first one is the one that works, and the second one is the one that hasn't been tested.
I presume the second one he's not tried yet. Yeah. That was the impression I got. Yeah, but at least it shows Sam's thinking about the game on another level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Do you have any more?
I do. Email from Mal Reed. He says, I've been watching a couple of tournaments and the subject of pot committed has come up. The context is that the commentators says that one of the players should get away from the pot because they had a weak hand and he wasn't pot committed, i.e. he hadn't put many chips into the pot.
Well, that's not necessarily what it means, but okay, we'll come back to it.
And then he says, surely the logic is that once the chips are in the pot, then they are no longer yours and shouldn't influence your subsequent decision making. What do you think?
My little head's going to explode. It's tough,
this,
isn't it? No, but it's tough, you know.
It's tough being you, Cass, because I don't have to answer them, you do.
I tell you. Just want to come to work and have some ciders and, you know. Do you know, I haven't drunk cider since I was 14 on a Boxing Day, and me and my mate decided to buy 2 litres of cider and a bottle of Cinzano.
Cinzano?
And we thought we'd make a cocktail, so we mixed mixed the two, just kept on pouring them into each bottle and shook it up. God, so sick.
Someone
I was sick for 3 days.
A pint of cider on me last night.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't drinking it.
I was sick for 3 days, and I've never drunk Cinzano or cider since. And that is a classic example of pain aversion.
Yes, it is. It is.
Which, as we know,
everybody has a
come
drink
into poker.
like that.
They do. You're absolutely right. Everyone has something that made them really ill when they were younger.
I can't drink gin.
Really?
Yeah.
Exactly the same
Because
thing.
I decided to try and drink it straight.
I actually used to retch every time I went into the alcohol department of a supermarket for about 6 months afterwards.
Because you were that ill,
yeah. It was that ill. Right, so anyway, that's not what the email's about, unfortunately, otherwise it would be answered. It's about pot commitment.
Pot committed, yeah.
Okay, so actually his paraphrase, i.e. he hadn't put many chips in the pot, is not what the commentator is necessarily referring to. So what is it Mal Reed?
Mal Reed, yeah.
Mal Reed is absolutely right. Mal, you're 100% right. The chips that you put into the pot are not yours and shouldn't influence your subsequent decision-making. That's true, and any commentator on P&L thinks that it's not true. Well, no commentator on P&L would think that. However, if you have a certain stack, and this is particularly applicable to tournaments, or particularly relevant where tournaments are concerned, if you have a certain number of chips in your stack, and you have that number of chips because you have spent a certain number of chips, it's going to have 2 effects. Number one, the number of chips you have spent is going to have some effect on the size of the pot. That's also going to be obviously affected by the number of players.
Yeah.
If there's 5 players, there's going to be 5 times as many chips as you've put in. If there's 2 players, it's going to be 2 times as many, or there or thereabouts. And then the question is one of you in the blinds, or is one of you not in the blinds? If the blinds folded, etc., etc. So the first thing that the number of chips that you spent is going to affect is the pot odds that you're receiving, and that is the first factor in assessing pot commitment, is what pot odds are you receiving. In other words, are you receiving such good pot odds that you're effectively committed to calling the bet or putting the rest of your money in, right?
Yeah.
The second factor in pot commitment is the number of chips you have left and what effect that has on your opportunity cost of not calling. In other words, simply put, do you have so few chips that you have such a small chance of winning that tournament without calling, not just because your chance of winning the tournament is proportionate to the number of chips that you have, because it's not effectively.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have enough chips, then your raises don't mean anything, and therefore they're effectively calls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that basically,
if they're not powerful enough to make people fold.
Yeah. And you're also perceived as being weak, so it has a negative effect on your table image. There's almost nothing you can do. So actually, if you have, let's say the average stack is 4,000, and you're on a table with some quite big stacks, the difference between having 2,000 and 200, you've got a much lower chance than you're going to win that tournament far fewer times than a tenth with 200 chips than if you've got 2,000 chips.
Yeah.
Okay, or 400 to 4,000 chips. So let's just go back and recap this slightly because it is confusing. The first factor that dictates pot commitment is the pot odds you're receiving. The second factor that dictates pot commitment is the number of chips you have left compared to the blinds and the other chips and the other stacks on the table. And both of those are going to be caused by the number of chips that you've actually put into the pot.
Right.
So whilst the chips you put into the pot are no longer yours, they will have had an indirect bearing on the two things that decide whether you're pot committed.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And my point has always been that there is a point where you are pot committed, and we can all agree it, and there's a point where you're not pot committed, but I've never seen any proper research done as to the
where the
delineation.
point is, yeah.
That's the thing. And poker players argue about it and shout about it forever. And Nick and I used to argue about this, and he used to say, he's not pot committed. And I used to say, OK, fine, but when is he pot committed? Yeah? Because you can see that if you had $1 left and there's 4,000 in the pot, then he would be. So where is that magic line crossed?
But at least you've explained what it means to Michael now. I think he was a bit confused by what it actually meant.
Yeah, I think so. Although I think he was also confused by this issue of chips in the pot, because he's right. They're no longer yours.
Yeah. Yeah, but thank you for your email, Malcolm. If you've got any questions, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk or text 84222. We'll get some more of your questions after a short break, and also we're going to look at the final of our MTT. So stick around and we'll see you soon. Want to ask Caspar anything about Texas Hold'em, then get in touch with us. You can text us. 84222 is the number. Put poker at the start of your message, or you can email, and the email address is poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. The double top has sent an email in, nothing to do with poker. He just says, could you please give a big shout out for Hereford United, who got back into the Football League today. Well done, Hereford.
Hereford.
Nice one.
Is that how you do a shout out? I don't know. You've been on the radio. What do? Do you go Hereford?
Well, see, when people say shout out, they don't actually want you to shout. No, they just want you to read it.
Just read it out. Okay.
So there you go, double top. If you've got any questions or you want us to do any shout outs, then get in touch with us.
You quite like doing them, don't you? Secretly. Good.
Yeah. Do you fancy going to the MTT?
Love to.
Right, let's head back to our MTT and see where it stands now. It's the final six.
It's the final six.
So it's a $10 MTT.
That's one of those songs, isn't it? No one forgets that.
No.
By Europe.
We started off with 121 entrants, 16 tables. It is a freeze out. 1,500 starting chips, and the blinds have been going up every 12 minutes. Prize pool of $1,210, and the top 10 places paid, so everyone at our table here, they're all in the money. It just depends on how much, isn't that right, Caspar?
Yeah, very much so.
So we've got Willy Wall. Still there. Eat My Ace remains.
Eat My Ace.
Yeah. Sazzle. 7-8 on tilt. H2O Stephen. And is that Raw? O? Maybe? Raw O-U-K?
Raoul.
Raoul.
Should we call it, what should we say?
Raw. Raw Owl. I think.
Oh, there's been some discussion about this on the internet, yes. Raw Owl.
So six people left. The person who goes out next is going to get $78.65. It's all about moving up those places now, isn't it?
It certainly is. And look, our friend 7-8 on tilt, who we encountered a long time ago, is a massive chip leader.
Miles ahead.
Massive internal injuries.
Stevens all in. Unfortunately, his ace-4 is walking into Willy Wall's pair of aces, which is not a nice situation to be in.
His number 4 doesn't get it.
And we lose Stevens, so 78.65, and we're down to the last 5. Those blinds are Pretty serious now. Eat my ace. Savile especially in bad shape.
Yep, once you get down to 5 times the big blind. So what should 7-8 on tilt be doing here, do we think? Well, it's not a question of playing for implied odds now, so it's definitely not a question of calling with any hand.
No.
Because to get implied odds, your opponent has to have the big stack as well. Okay? Is it a question of calling down these stacks when they make significant bets, like if they move all in and you're in the big blind? Well, for me, it's not. For me, that's the way that you quickly lose chips.
Right.
Yeah.
And lose the advantage that you have at this point.
Yes, I don't mind losing my big blind to these people if I've got bad cards.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm absolutely loving at this stage is when I'm folding and these other small stacks are calling. What do we say when you don't bluff? Don't bluff a small stack and don't bluff a very big stack.
Yeah.
All right? Because big stacks tend to call. I don't think they're correct to. All right? But small stacks tend to call as well because they go, oh, you know, the blinds are eating me up. They do what Rabbi Whoop or whatever he was called emailed in, and they start calling with ace jacks.
Yeah.
And so suddenly you've got this situation where 2 small stacks are going to war, and you don't have to do anything. Now, if you can get in cheaply with a reasonably decent hand, like Queen Jack suited there with Raoul playing, then fair enough. But in general, let other people take each other out. But don't be scared to call because with a decent hand, because in the same way, because in the same way that small stacks are likely to call with poorer hands, they're also likely to move all in with poorer hands because they've got to take the blinds there and then.
Right.
So it's about loosening up slightly with that big card advantage.
Yeah.
All right.
But not doing anything stupid.
No, and certainly don't loosen up with suited connectors. Right. We've talked about when you should play suited connectors and when you shouldn't.
Because it's going to get to the point where Savile and Eat My Ace are going to have to make a move anyway against each other.
That's right. That's right. So that for me is how you play a big stack at this stage in the tournament.
Now, Savile.
Interesting situation here. You know, this is exactly what we said. Exactly what you said. So 7-8 on tilt can really win by not doing. Can I just make one point though, Lyndsay, here? 7-8 on tilt is in a lovely situation here because he's so big and the other stacks are so small. In other words, did Willie Wall just fold queens there? He folded
queens, but was that not a really good thing to do? Because was he not of the frame of mind there where he was letting them go against each other?
No, because he's got 56,000 and a pair of queens and it's only going to cost him 10,000. So if the worst case scenario is one of those guys are going to take 10,000 off him, he doesn't know that Savile's got aces, right?
Yeah,
these 2 small stacks would have gone with anything. So it's going to cost him 10,000 to have, you know, what is, in absence of any information, a good chance of taking 2 players out and becoming chip leader.
So that was overly cautious.
So for me, taking that bet,
okay,
because they were both all in, I was really protected.
10,000 and nothing more.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more because Eat My Ace had some more, but that's still, you know, queens for God's sakes.
Yeah.
That's. Again, it's all about information. Of course, one of them could have aces, as one of them did have aces. But the all-in bet and the all-in call there doesn't mean as much because these players are desperate.
Yeah, if it was 7-8 on tilt, different story altogether.
Exactly, absolutely, definitely. Unless, you know, someone can say, look, you haven't been sitting at this table. Savile is not playing unless he's got the holy nuts and he's just called.
Yeah.
He's only going to call there with aces and kings, all in. In which case, okay, increases that likelihood to 70, 80%. Fine, I'm going to fold my queens. Okay. But I'm looking at it as a generic, as an absence of that information. In the absence of that information, I definitely called my queens then.
Okay.
But once again, we're seeing some pre-flop hands, aren't we?
We are. It's been like that all night, actually.
Yep. Fantastic.
Now, Eat My Ace pushed him with his ace-king.
Mm-hmm. Imogen apparently is a sexy, edgy and confident hostess.
A hostess?
I assume that she's a hostess in a club or something. It could just mean that she's an edgy, confident hostess when people come around to her house.
She could be a good host of dinner parties.
You might be sitting there having tea in the living room going, Imogen's a bit edgy, isn't she? You might.
Yeah,
and I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's a scenario.
Favourite book, not known.
Yeah, well, we're looking at the Big Brother official website, folks, and they haven't inundated us with information. Except what we do know is that Nikki's favourite book is The Sport, The Sun and the Star.
Because, of course, they are books.
Eschewing the more traditional choice of the Da Vinci Code for 3 newspapers.
Do you think from that we can take that she possesses a wealth of knowledge?
Yeah, she doesn't, does she?
About Victoria Beckham, that's about it, yeah.
Yeah. But she probably will get a footballer as a result of being on this show, so it just shows the power of positive thinking, and I'm not joking. You bring into being what you most desire, if you want it enough.
That's their stupid fault.
Who what?
Any footballer who takes up with her after she blatantly went on TV and admitted that that is her only ambition in life.
Go on, tell me what she said, because it's funny.
All she wants to do is...
Hang on, let's just see where On Tilt calls this. Oh, he does, calls with the Jack Queen. Now, that's interesting, because that is, you know, a Queen High, that's not what I would call with.
Yeah.
Yeah? And I know that Eat My Ace is you know, small stacked, but he's in that...
It's not good enough.
No, for me it's not. For me it's not, for that reason that he only has to have a king. Now, I know that we're only like, you know, 1.5 times behind, to 1 down there. In fact, even less, actually, with Jack Queen suited a different suit. But why? The blind is, you know, he's just going to win. He's just going to win the 3,000 big blind from you. There's no need to, I don't think, in that situation. And again, I say that in full knowledge of the fact that Eat My Ace may well go in there with 7-8 suited. May well do.
But it doesn't matter.
I need to have the big card power there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair.
No, I think
it's always easier from the blimp, isn't it?
From the blimp, yeah.
I wouldn't have called that. Sorry, Lyndsay, go on. You were saying about footballer.
No, she just said her only ambition in life is to marry a Premiership footballer.
What does she want to do with her days?
That's all she wants, because she wants to spend all day going for lunch, having my nails done, having my hair done, going shopping. And that's what she wants for her life.
So do I, though. Is that wrong?
What, to go and have your nails done?
Yeah. Nice nails. It's always a nice thing. Nice king's look for Savile.
But you can do those things and have
I do those things
a more
anyway.
fulfilled life, making your own money.
If I had that and a sexy Oriental, I'd quit this job. As long as she had money. So she'd have to have money as well.
So you'd be willing to be a kept man?
Yeah. What? Of course. I hope that was rhetorical. It'd be brilliant.
Some men don't like it. They feel it takes away a bit of power.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm sick of power.
Do you want an easy life?
Brilliant. I'd love to be kept.
Oh.
I'd keep the house. I wouldn't buy curtains, but, you know.
Can you iron?
No, I wouldn't do the house. I'd have you know...
You'd get a housekeeper.
Get someone come in. I'm just saying I'd oversee it. As you say, you've missed a bit. How hard can it be?
Yeah.
I think me and Nick have got a lot in common. Oh, you can have your careers.
You're no good for her, though.
No, I don't. No, I'm saying we've got a lot in common, not that we'd be catastrophic going out with each other. She's probably far too tall for me.
No, she's tiny.
Is she?
She's a little tiny thing.
Well,
good figure.
Great figure. Eat My Ace. Ace Jack and the 10s now. 7-8 on tilt. Got a bit of a decision now. Is he going to raise it up? 3, 4 times the big blind. Just the standard. And Savile does fold. And that's interesting. Savile did fold the Ace Jack there.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because that may well go to account for Willie Wall's fold with the Queens.
Yeah.
So I take it back, Mr. Willie. Is it Willie Wall?
Willie Wall. Willie Wall 2.
Oh, the sequel.
Yeah. Oh.
Is it Free Willie Wall 2?
See what you did there. Bit of aggression there by 7-8 on tilt.
Yeah.
Takes it down.
And that's good stuff. I like that. I suppose we're doing that and just calling down short stacks when they implode. But things aren't as good for 7-8 on tilt now. Remember when we came here, he was on about 78, and Savile and Eat My Ace were both on about 10-12, and Royale wasn't looking too healthy either. Now things are equalising slightly, so I still recommend the same strategy personally, but Savile is not going to implode with the same certainty.
Yeah.
Now
Willie
we don't have the
Wall's
same certainty. He's going
closing the gap.
Willie Wall. Willie Wall doesn't have a decision here. I don't know how he can fold queens and then think about that. I think he's basically he was just pausing there, so it didn't look like an automatic fold. So fair enough. And once again, I take it back, Willie Wall. I've given you a hard time tonight for no apparent reason.
Being very cautious now, aren't they? No. That for me is a massive mistake by Royale. You've one of three things I would say you do there. You either fold 10 Jack in that situation, you just lose your 1500. Or
right?
you put it all in.
Well, or you put it all in, definitely.
Yeah.
Or you call and you play this. I'm going to call and I'm going to bet out all in on the flop, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you say to yourself, whatever I do before the flop, if that 6,000 raise before the flop is a lot less likely to elicit a fold to meet my ace than the bet out on the flop, whatever. Yeah, because he is less likely to have hit something on the flop than he is before the flop, because players could well want to put 3,000 in before the flop with anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas there's 2 out of 3 chance roughly that they're not going to want to or be in a position to call my bet on the flop, and therefore I'll call and bet out on the flop. It's a play.
Yeah.
It's a move, and the only time you might not want to do it is if the flop comes down with so many possibilities. Like, you know, if you've got Jack 10, well, let's say you've got 9-10.
Okay.
Yeah. If the flop comes down, Queen King Ace suited of something you don't have, then you might not want to put it in them because they've got one of those suits they're going to call. If they've got a queen or a king or an ace, then they're going to call.
Yeah.
So, but let's say the flop came down with 1 king and then a 2 and a 4, you definitely just move all in there because you can only call with a king.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But the one thing I wouldn't be doing there is raising it to 6,000 before the flop.
It's just very weak.
It's
just not doing anything.
No, it's not doing what you want it to do, which is you've got 10 Jack. You know, you've got Jack high in a heads-up situation with some very unlikely straight draw possibilities. So what you want to do is win the blinds or fold it.
Yeah.
Willie Woll raises it to 2 times the big blind. Now, is he using our 2 times the big blind indicates an an aces or king's hand knowledge there that we've been talking about earlier on tonight, or was that?
If he was, it worked.
If it was, it definitely worked. Absolutely.
If.
Well, 2 times the big blind is certainly becoming the standard opening gambit. And on this occasion it's going to backfire. I can see a push now from Royale, as indeed it does, and Savile has no choice but to fold this now. And to basically curse his lot and wonder whether Royale is actually making a move on him. And he'll have found out now that he wasn't, but 5-10 minutes ago, or whenever this was played out, he would have been very angry at that point. And maybe he can channel that into a bit of tilty play now. I wonder if he should have... no, I think that's probably the right play, actually. Maybe I would have put 4 times the big blind in there. Well, Willy Wall, that's a weird play for me. I mean, Savile's either a tight player or he's not.
Yeah.
What are we doing calling his raise? We folded queens.
And now
when we had 40,000 left in reserve.
Now calling it with Queen Jack.
And that's where, you know, whereas in isolation I wouldn't judge a player for a particular play, in that particular occasion, taken in the context, for me there's no rhyme or reason or justification for those two plays juxtaposed from the same player. Willy Wall, if you're out there, I've already incorrectly criticised you on a couple of times tonight. If you want to put that criticism in the same category, then do please email or text the show. I remain open-minded.
We'd like to hear from you, or indeed if you have got any questions that you'd like to send through before the end of the show, 84222 is the text number. Put the word poker at the start of your message. Or if you want to email, it's poker@pokernightllive.co.uk. There it is on your screen. Take note. They're all hanging in there.
Yeah, it's more a function of the way the hands have fallen, really, rather than the play. I'm not saying therefore the play's bad. I'm just saying it hasn't been conducive to necessarily producing this result. I think Willy Wall would be. I think he'd be the first to admit that he's made a mistake. To be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with that. No shame in it. It's just important to learn from it, ask what the mistake was, and to make sure it doesn't happen again. But for me, the mistake was massively overvaluing a queen high in a situation against a player that we've already labelled as actually reasonably tight. Maybe I'm being a bit of ignoring my own point. Maybe the fact that Savile looked like he was on tilt at that point was precisely what precipitated the call.
It could very well be, and we've lost Eat My Ace. He goes away as $96.80 in 5th place. It could be.
The power of the looking like it's a tilty play. Remember earlier on it didn't work. Remember the 3 players folded. On this occasion, maybe it's precisely what extracted that call from Willy Wall. Willy Wall, please, if you're out there, give us a shout. Tell us what did it for you.
Now Savile wants a diamond or a jack.
Yeah, he's got a couple of outs there, and he can certainly afford to make a relatively small bet to win a relatively big pot. In fact, that little bet has made all the difference to his bankroll.
Yeah.
So an interesting, quite innocuous hand there, which could, in the final analysis, make all the difference. Now, Willy Wall making a big play from the big blind. What do we know about these early positions? Like we say, that's the equivalent of raising 2 times the big blind with a Queen Jack.
Yeah.
It happens to be Ace 10 on that occasion. It's a rather messy little hand that he wants to extract some or have to get rid of.
It's very evenly matched now, considering how we started when we came to this table, when it was 6-handed. 7-8 on tilt, still ahead, but only very slightly.
This, by the way, that for me with the King 4 is the classic fold situation from the small blind. For me personally, people will disagree, but they've got to put a very good argument up for me to understand why you would play King 4 there from the small blind.
Right.
A lot of people would try and raise, and I only say this because I've just done it so many times myself, of thinking that I'll take the blinds there in this situation. Now, will Saville pop it back? Is he going to get his own back on Royal for raising his button raised before? He is, but Royal doesn't think twice about it, puts down the ace-3, which is a good job. And like I say, Saville, having been tilty, wins the hand with the ace-king, wins the hand with the flush and straight draw on the turn, and before you know it, he's...
Chip leader.
Yep. It can all change. How many times do we say it? How many times is it necessary to watch it before people have a kind of centred approach to poker that accepts that these things are going to happen?
We say it a lot because we see it a lot.
Mm-hmm. We say what we see, don't we?
We say what we see.
Catchphrase.
Ding.
That was very good. Do it again.
Ding.
See, I knew what you were doing an impression of there.
Did you?
Yeah, it's good. 2 times the big blind, it's all happening. And for me there, Willie Wall, you've got to move all in or fold that ace-3. 2 times the big blind when you've got that much in your stack is a pretty bad play for me personally. I'm sorry, mate. I know you'd say, oh, I can get rid of it now, but then in which case I would say just fold it in the first place. For me, you've got to be confident there. And whether you do move all in or fold, for me, then has to do with your table image. If you've got a solid table image, then move all in. If you don't think that you're going to get away with it, then fold. But you just don't have enough big blinds. You know, you had fewer than 10 big blinds in your stack at that time. That's not enough to get tricky with. And that's really depressing. And a lot of people at home will be sitting there going, well, what are you supposed to do with 10 big blinds? And the fact is, you know, unfortunately, you don't have much poker with 10 big blinds. And all tournaments, you know, that are sort of $30 buy-in, $50 buy-in, anything less than $1,000 really, you will have 10 big blinds for a lot of it in your stack. And it does mean that you have very few decisions, and that does mean that the skill element is
reduced.
Yeah, reduced. And if the skill element is reduced, then the edge is reduced.
Oh, shame for Raw Owl.
Not for Saville.
No, not for
What did
Saville.
Raw Owl win for his troubles?
He won 114 bucks.
There we are.
4th place, and Saville, look at him now, storming ahead.
Yeah. He was. I mean, when we first came to the table, it was him and Eat My Ace that were in trouble.
Yeah.
And then he had when Willie Wall folded, he had a pair of, was it 5s that hand? No, he had aces that hand.
Aces,
didn't he? Yeah. So that hand. So we've charted these key turning points for Saville that have made the difference, and they've been ups and downs, just like life.
Yes. Undulating. What you gonna do? Just puts in 8,000, but not profit maximising.
Don't know. Sorry, Lyndsay, I was miles away actually. How do you mean not profit maximising?
He put in 8,000. Willie Wall folded.
But he didn't have much of a hand, did he?
He had 2 pair. He hit his.
Did he?
He hit 9 and a 10. So maybe.
Oh, okay, right. So we're coming back to our earlier trips hand. We should have checked there, yeah, and induced a bet, yeah. 2 pair more vulnerable than 3 of a kind, but even so, we're only 3-handed. You heads up on the flop. I'm inclined to agree with you. It's more borderline, that's all.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the situations is you've got a small stack. Small stacks want to try and win it there and then. Almost certainly going to make a bet on the turn. Even if you make a mistake and end up all in with the guy, he can only hurt you so much. And it's a significant amount, but he can't take you out of the tournament. So all those things would contribute to taking a bit of a risk, even if
Yeah.
with just a 2 pair. Now Willie Wall moves all in, and that's a good confident move. Takes it there and then, can't be put off the hand.
Does the job?
Doesn't have the option really of just putting these 2 times the big blind, the raise, 2 times the big blind raise in.
9 jack.
Folds, doesn't think twice with the 10 jack. Not saying you should. I see it all in coming here. And at the end of the day, for me, see, I don't think, if I'm Willie Wall, I don't think I want to call with anything, because I think 7-8 on tilt will put down ace-9 if you move all in that situation.
Yeah. And we knew he had a stinker of a hand. He's sitting there with 2-4. He doesn't know that.
I'm more than open to the notion that Willie Wall says, look, you know, moving all in relentlessly like that looks suspicious and will invite a call at some point. That's fine. But then I would say fold more often as well. I don't know. You can argue these things till you're blue in the face, can't you? Willie Wall can say, well, look, you know, he did fold and I didn't jeopardise my whole stack, etc., etc. What is pot commitment? So there we had 7-8 suited, and I think we'll just come back to that subject of the earlier email, which is the suited connectors. When shall I play them? Because I'm going off them altogether. That is a time when 7-8 tilt could conceivably have gone all in with his 7-8 suited. 7-8 on tilt hasn't made that many aggressive plays, so his raises are quite respected. You are three-handed, and what you're saying, or what you're doing when you raise with that is, you know, you're saying, if I just wait till I've got ace and a jack or better to make my raises, then I'm never going to make it. We're now reasonably even. Willie Wall's not under that much pressure.
Yeah.
I can't afford necessarily to wait for too long. The blinds are, when I win them, you know, I'm making more than 10% of my stack up at the moment with blinds at 6,000 in total. And what you're saying when you make that raise is, you know, I'm not playing it for the 7-8 suited. That gives me a bit of backup.
He's playing it for the blinds. If by some chance somebody does call him, he's still got a good chance of winning it because he's probably going to have it heads up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't use the phrase good chance of winning it, but actually Nick and I yesterday went through something which I can't remember now in the cold light of day, but we sort of devised a 3-part structure for when you should be going all in with big cards. We said if you, oh God, why can't I remember it now? If you're definitely going to be called with a big hand, then you should actually have low cards to have a live hand.
Right.
If you're going to be called with anything, then you should have a big hand.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're unlikely to be called, then you should have a big hand.
Yeah.
Is that right? Can't remember now.
If you're unlikely to be called.
Maybe if you're unlikely to be called, then you don't need any hand. If you're definitely going to be called only by big cards, then you should have low live card suited connectors, and if you're definitely going to be called by anything, then you need a big hand,
Right.
or a big card,
Yeah.
at least to give you the pressure, the strength of the high card. So 7-8 suited in that situation, yeah, I think it's quite possible that you're only going to be called by a big card.
Yeah.
So the low live cards is a good situation.
Yeah.
So that's different to the reason why I raised that is because that's different to the criteria that I gave earlier on.
Yeah, so it's a completely different
you're
situation.
playing there for the fold equity.
Yeah.
That's what's crucial. You're playing for the fold equity, not for the what if they call equity. And what we were talking about earlier on was we were talking about a hand that is likely to be called to the river. Wasn't it also? Wasn't he also talking about? When we also talking about limit poker at that time, or was that another
Yes.
email?
Yes, we were.
I think it might have been another email.
There's another email, but it was a similar thing that we were talking about, where it would be called right down to the river.
Yeah. The point that I was making was in a no-limit game, playing 7-8 aggressively in just because you're in later position is a misunderstanding of the way to play that hand.
Right.
Three-handed is a different kettle of fish.
Especially when he hasn't been making very many aggressive raises.
Yeah.
He's going to get respect for it, so in that situation he could have made them fold.
Yeah. So get out of jail card free there for Willie Wall with the Queen on the river. And Sutherland 7-8 just praying that he goes out sooner rather than later. Is Willie Wall going to make a little move here? I suspect he's getting a bit desperate. He does. Don't know why you thought that, but it's just there's something about it. And look, he hits his queen. It's an unfair world.
Got it straight. Knight, 10, Jack, Queen, King takes it, and we lose Willie Wall.
God heard me and went, I'm not having that.
Yeah.
Give him a king and a 9. What a little outdraw there from the flop onwards for 7-8 on tilt. So, very interesting. And how much does Willie make?
$151.
Jolly good.
For third place, and very even now for heads up.
Yep.
Savills feeling a bit flush there.
You make that up?
Yeah.
That's really good. Have you got one for all the hands? Savills
Yeah.
straightening things out.
Yes. Savills got some juicy pears.
Good, this just gets better and better.
Savills having a party. He's got a full house. Savills feeling hot and not gay. He's got a straight flush.
Good.
Nobody getting any real decent hands here to make any bold moves with.
Oh.
Nice for 7-8 on tilt.
Have a little think about it, have a little think about
straight.
it, and by which I mean pretend to have a think about it. Yeah, good amount of time there. Obviously doesn't want to see the heart, but mustn't let that scare him too much. Okay, so bets out and takes it on that occasion. As we said, it's just not, it's not a worry.
Yeah.
It's more a worry because Saville bet out on the flop and could have been semi-bluffing with that flush. But I would have bet out slightly. Ooh, deck's smashing him, isn't it?
It's lovely, heads up.
Now, he doesn't know it here, but yeah, he really just wanted a smooth call there because, of course, Savills going to fold. Doesn't know that, though, so probably did the right thing, actually.
Queen 3 suited, yes, no?
Now, what 7-8 tilt is doing very well here is what was called about 7 months ago by a writer of an email, foot in the back of the neck. Very effective. I didn't like that all in with the a6. Didn't need to risk so many chips in relation to the blinds with such a poor hand. But in general, keeping Saville very much under pressure, which I like. No need to expose ourselves to too much risk. 7-8 on tilt there, exposing himself to Saville calling with any bigger ace, which he would do.
Yeah.
That's the fact. He would call with a bigger ace than a6 every single time.
Yeah.
He wouldn't, he wouldn't fold a7 in that situation.
No.
Saville would just go, I've got an ace heads up, I'm losing this. He's outplaying me at the moment, he's got the pressure on, this is the point at which I have to call. So yeah, I don't want to see 7-8 on tilt exposing himself like that again, for want of a better phrase. But playing really well, keeping the pressure on nicely. And similar principle there from Saville, it's 9,000 in the pot. I know he's not awash with cash.
But he didn't have to risk as many.
Yeah, well, maybe, hang on, I'm probably talking nonsense. Yeah. Well, he's got so little.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a lot of that back, actually.
Okay.
I'm not looking at the overall chip stacks in this scenario. 7-8 on tilt doesn't need to do it, and Saville does.
Pair of queens for Saville. This puts in a little 6,000. He's given him the chance to outdraw him, isn't he?
Mm. The one thing I do like about that Saville's bet there is, if I'm sitting in 7-8 on tilt place, I'm sure he's got a flush at that point. And I'm wrong if I'm 7-8.
But it's just an example of heads up where the aggression takes it in a lot of cases.
It was just it was a subtle aggressive point because it was the minimum bet with a flush out there.
But the fact that 7-8 just kept checking, he thought, well, I might as well do something.
Oh yeah, no, sure, definitely.
Even if it's just a small move and it works.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to see.
Good play from both players there. And, yeah, Saville takes it. She evens it up. It's a nice heads-up battle, this. Yep, good stuff. I check this personally, which is because he may have cards higher than a queen, but I've got a lot of outs and top pair. I like my situation there. I actually want to check raise when I'm in Savile's position there.
Yeah.
And I would also check and call, because if Savile went all in, I would actually figure that I had him a positive expectation in that situation by checking and calling,
right,
and an excellent expectation by checking and raising.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say the one thing about these players is that they're not the whole. We've observed it sort of 4 or 5 times now, Lyndsay, and we've talked about it at different times throughout this evening. Is this business of when you've got the better hand heads up and you've got a good hand heads up, is if you bet out, if they're better than you, then they'll raise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're worse than you, they'll fold. So heads up, it is absolutely imperative, I think, to extract your edge sometimes by checking and inducing the bet.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes when you check and induce, well, to be honest with you, if you check and they have a monster too, then they'll check behind you, yeah, and then you can bet out on the turn, and if they raise you. But if
you can then follow that betting pattern and work that out from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's been a number of occasions here as we see our third quads of the evening, Savile with 4 tens, when the players should have extracted more money with their good hands, whether it was a pair of kings or the flush or the top pair or whatever it was. And certainly when you're talking about 2 pairs and 3 of a kind on the flop, definitely time to do that. Because that's what we always say, you know, it is about maximising our expectation, not about making sure we win that particular hand.
Yeah.
King Queen puts the raise in. And I wonder to what extent we're just waiting for the key hand here, or to what extent they can be architects of their own destiny. I mean, when we see, you know, a pair of jacks and a pair of eights, obviously a pair of aces and a pair of queens, then we're pretty sure that this is going to end at that point. And I think Savile there, again, you know, going all in with the 8-2 for me is just exposing ourselves to too much risk there. For me, personally, it's just exposing ourselves to too much. There's too many hands that 7-8 could call with, unless these were 2 players that exhibited an enormous gap in their play.
Is this the one?
It's King 2, and this could be a classic example of it. This could be exactly what I mean. Now he's having a think about it. No, he folds. But he could quite easily have called there with King 8 or better. Ace 8 versus a pair of jacks. This looks very like the kind of hand. They go in. He needs an 8 or an ace. No, the jacks take. Sorry, the jacks take it. Yep.
Yeah, Savile.
And Savile wins. Very interesting, because we didn't know that Savile was going to win, and that's the honest truth, folks. We saw those key hands for Savile there in his play, didn't we? That made all the difference.
Changed the tournament for him.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well done, Savile.
Yeah, $363 to Savile for winning the tournament. $242 for second place.
It's all right.
Still a good return for $10. You're on with James tomorrow night from 10
I think so.
o'clock.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know who I'm on with. Is it James?
Yes, you are
that's
with
good.
James tomorrow night. 10
Fantastic.
o'clock tomorrow
Look
night.
forward to that.
Lots of good discussion.
Yeah, we'll talk about implied odds a lot. Definitely.
Lots of in-depth analysis for a pro night.
Well, James is the man for implied odds, and we'll talk about playing tight, nice tight style of play versus that loose style of play, and I'll get into a bit of psychology as well.
So you're going to go and watch Nikki on the live Big Brother feed now?
I'm going to go and sleep.
I bet you have a little sneaky look.
I can say something else there.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for all your emails and texts tomorrow. Tune in from 10 tomorrow night for Cass and James on Poker Night Live. But from us, thanks for watching and good night.
All right.